think he stepped out either. That may be the greatest catch I've ever
seen. Welcome into another edition of the Giant Overreaction. And as I said a couple of weeks ago, we are definitely running out of things to overreact to during this season. Welcome to the rawest, realest New York Giants content. It is extremely bad, y'all. We are in an extremely bad place right now, but we're not going to overreact too crazy and scream at our TVs today. I knew that, this has been a bad season, but we kind of knew this coming in, that this New York Giants team was not really prepared to truly compete for W's this year. And the last three games have definitely, given us a bit of a reality check here. And shout out to Sal Licata from WFAN. He said without Jaxson Dart, the New York Giants would be looking like an expansion team right now. And that is an absolute fact. So just know that things could absolutely be worse. The 49ers came in 2.5-point favorites. They definitely covered that. The over-under was 48.5, and we definitely got there. Not by the necessarily by the means of the New York Giants, but this one, I would say the scoreboard looked a lot closer than the game actually was. The San Francisco 49ers absolutely controlled this one throughout, but definitely appreciate everybody being here, especially after a big loss like that, man. And 3 in a row, it just truly hurts right now, with the New York Giants showing a little bit of signs of life a couple of weeks ago with that W against the Philadelphia Eagles. And then ever since then, it's been a bit of a nightmare for our team. We got a whole half a season to go, and that's the craziest part about it. This feels like a game where, or season where in the third quarter, the game is already over. But you still got to go out there and watch the fourth quarter and live in agony for the rest of that game. And in this case, it is going to be for the season for the New York Giants. 49ers win 34-24. The Giants fall to 2-7 on the season. San Francisco 49ers improved to 6-3. And the big topic today has been the coaching staff. And when you look at the 49ers, who are dealing with their own injuries, sitting at 6-3, I think that you could definitely point the finger at the coaching staff as being a big part of that, the difference in why that team is 6-3 and why our New York Giants are sitting at 2-7 currently. Big shout out to the gang in the chat one time, man. I see all of y'all in the building. Appreciate y'all pulling up, dropping comments in the comment section before we even started the show. I see Antoine was the first one here. Nickel Productions in the building. Michael Knight even stopped by to just say he would catch the replay after work. Deedon Shelton in the building. My dog, No Mets, No Nets, No Jets, who was rocking out with us yesterday on the Bleacher Report stream, man, in the building as well. I see Marjorie's in the building. Heck, your boys in the building. A lot of folks in the building today, considering the New York Giants had a major loss. I see some people talking about Carl Banks. That's Marjorie. Marjorie says, Carl Banks also said the defense is running around with dirty diapers and they smell, and the opposing team can smell their stink, and they need to change their diapers. I agree. I think everybody agrees with that. And considering the way that Carl Banks criticized Dexter Lawrence and the rest of this defense, a week ago, you can absolutely say that Carl Banks was right. I see my dog Dante is in the building representing East Coast Gridiron. Mac, the Giants fan, is in the building representing them Giants content creators. We also got a super chat right off the bat from my dog Kelvin Arzu in the building one time with the $4.99 super chat. That's for my dog Dante right there. He said it's only a therapy session if you think we were going to win, or we're going to win. Hopefully there's some fires today, though. They already talked to the media. Doesn't look like anybody's getting fired today. We'll get into that as the show develops. I don't know if we need therapy at this point, man. We need a doctor at this point, like a real doctor, because the New York Giants can't find a way to be fixed. But big shout out to my dog, Kelvin Arzu, helping us raise the bar right at the beginning of the show. I see all of y'all in the building. Kevin, the PRF, is in the building. Tough loss for your Commanders yesterday, man. It's just been a season where the NFC East, at least for that second place spot, is wide open. But, neither your Washington Commanders or my New York Giants can really, grab the bull by the horns and really try to take that second place spot. It looks like the Dallas Cowboys are going to maybe just by default, get that second place spot. But we'll see, man. Tough injury for Jaden Daniels last night. Definitely praying for a speedy recovery for him, along with all the other players you guys have on IR and on your injury report. Same thing goes for the New York Giants here. Definitely a tough loss. And, for those of y'all that were in the building at that game, Shout out to my dog B-Rog. He was trying to get me to pull up to that game with them, offered me free tickets. I just couldn't make it work. And, I was talking to my girl about this actually last night. Like, just imagine if I had to go up there, witness that type of a loss, spend a lot of money to move, to travel up there and whatnot, and then just be driving back with a shameless L, man. It was definitely not a good look. Planes flying over the stadium before the game. Big shout out to Bobby Skinner and Giants Nation. And just more 49ers fans in the building than there were New York Giants fans in the building. Wan'Dale Robinson actually said that the Giants had to go to a silent count. And that's just absolutely embarrassing at home. But at the same time, I don't blame the fans because this team is not giving us a lot to support right now. So why are we supposed to go out there, spend our hard-earned money in most cases to support a team that is not putting out a product on the field that is worthy enough for us to even be in the stands? So I do understand it. The Giants have now lost 3 in a row. I think the Commanders have now lost 4 in a row. And the Giants have lost 3 in a row to teams with a combined record of 19-7. So as I said at the beginning of the year, the schedule matters. Brian Daboll is now 20-39-1 as the head coach for the New York Giants, 9-7-1 in 2022, 6-11 in 2023, 3-14 in 24, and now 2-7 in 2025. Again, we all know this. It's a blanket statement that we all know reigns true. Coaching matters as well. The Giants are 2-7 now for the 3rd straight year in a row. And, I did a little bit of digging on this before I went live, trying to find other teams that have dealt with a head coach that has been in this type of position. And according to AI, the Giants are the only team in the last decade to start off 3 straight seasons at 2-7. I thought the Jets might have been in that ballpark, but they started off actually 2-6 in one of those seasons. So really the football teams in New York are the 2 teams that have been, at the bottom of the NFL as far as results go. And the Giants just cannot find a way to get out of that. The Giants have now allowed at least 33 points in each of their last 3 games. This was the first game this season that the 49ers scored over 26 points. So as we all know, the schedule matters, coaching matters, but also the opponents matter as well. Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are now 3-18 in their last 21 games. 5-17-1 in the NFC East. And when you remove the Washington Commanders from the equation, the New York Giants are 2-14 against the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. The Giants are currently right now in 15th place in the NFC with the playoffs basically out of sight right now. Now, let's talk about this game a little bit here. The Giants scored a touchdown on the opening drive. I believe that is 4 out of their last 6 games that they have scored a touchdown on the opening drive. 10 plays, 64 yards, and then they go punt, and a missed field goal to end the first half. The second half was a bit better offensively, with a field goal, a punt, and 2 touchdowns to round off this game. But the Giants really just couldn't get it going in the first half. 1 of 6 on third down in the first half. 6 total first downs in that first half. 98 total yards, 38 rushing yards by the New York Giants. That's just not going to get it done. And more importantly, defensively, they were just absolutely abysmal on the day. Mac Jones started off the game 14 of 14. My bad on that, y'all. Let me see where that's actually coming from. My bad, y'all. Give me 1 second. I'm getting some audio interjecting from a clip from earlier. Close that out. Yeah, so let me see where we left off at. Yeah, Mac Jones, 14 of 14 for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half. I understand that the New York Giants defense is basically in shambles right now. But at the end of the day, and this is no shade to Mac Jones, but Mac Jones is a backup quarterback in the National Football League for a reason. And to have a backup quarterback do that to our defense, I know this defense from a secondary standpoint is completely depleted, but we're not getting pressure on the quarterback. We're not making plays on the back end of this defense on the secondary. And you're looking at a backup quarterback who's basically now a journeyman after his first year with the New England Patriots, where he had a little bit of success. But outside of that, Mac Jones has been a very average to below average quarterback in the National Football League. And to allow him to go 14 of 14 for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half, the game was basically over in the first half. 49ers led at the half 17-7, and they gave us an opportunity there at the end of the first half where Mac Jones dropped back to pass. The pressure did get to him from the only player on our defense that is worth a damn in Brian Burns. The ball ended up going up into the sky, and Abdul Carter came down with what looked like to be an interception. When they went back and looked at the replay, Mac Jones, his arm was not going forward, so they ruled it a fumble. And the New York Giants go 3 and out, and Graham Gano misses, I believe it was a 45-yard field goal to end the first half. So Just not enough offensively, not enough when you look at the three phases of football from special teams, defense, and the offense. And although the New York Giants scored 17 points in the second half, the defense did not do their part, and they allowed the 49ers to score 17 points as well in the second half. So all of that, productivity from our offense, all for nothing. And that's been the case, for the majority of this season, that when the offense is clicking and scoring points, and in this game, they score over 20 points again, 24 points should be enough to at least have you in the game. The New York Giants come away with nothing except moral victories. And I know fans don't want to hear about moral victories, but that's really all we can come back to the table and look at as a positive outlook for the New York Giants as our fans. 0 turnovers on offense. That's really the only thing to hang your hat on. 2 for 3 in the red zone. The Giants have been a different team in the red zone with Jaxson Dart at the quarterback position. And the 49ers only outgained us by 42 total yards. So those are all things to me that when you look at this defense, if the defense would have done their part on the day, then maybe the New York Giants had a shot at winning this game. I picked the New York Giants on the preview show to win this game 27-24. And I thought that if they went out there and played to their capabilities, that they would have had a good shot to win this game. Also, Jaxson Dart was only sacked 2 times on the day. So really, like I said, all we can, come back to this Giant overreaction on a Monday and speak about are some moral victories. But the New York Giants just not getting the job done. I saw at Giants District on Twitter said this, and I totally agree with this. He said, Brian Burns and Jaxson Dart are literally the only players that I can truly say are putting pedal to the metal all game. Brian Burns currently leads the NFL with 11 sacks, and you look at Jaxson Dart thus far in his career with 15 total touchdowns. I mean, Jaxson Dart is just on pace to be playing high-level football right now. And if you had some wide receivers that were out there that were worth a damn, Jaxson Dart would actually be looking like a guy that is playing elite football. For those of y'all that want to know about, any coaches being fired, and that is why I kind of waited to go live this late today at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Brian Daboll was just asked if Shane Bowen is still your defensive coordinator, and Daboll said yes, he is. Daboll was also asked about trade options with the deadline coming up here tomorrow, and Daboll said the focus for me is the guys that are on this football team. That kind of, in my opinion, says that Brian Daboll might not be a guy who's going to be a part of the future plans for the New York Giants. When you looked at him at the podium at the end of the game, Brian Daboll just looked like a head coach that was completely dejected. He was at the podium, very antsy, swinging his arms around, looking like a guy that just did not want to be there. And when I saw that, I tweeted out that Brian Daboll looked like a kid that just got caught stealing. And, it's almost like a kid that got caught stealing or got in trouble at school, and you sitting there waiting on Ma Dukes to pull up to that school. And if your Ma Dukes was anything like my Ma Dukes, you knew you weren't going to be getting away with that when Ma Dukes had to take off time from work to pull up to school to deal with her son who was dealing with a bunch of bullshit. So definitely not looking good for the future of Brian Daboll thus far. And there are just so many reasons, but it all really boils down to, for me at least, what me and the Beard always talk about on this show, RTDB and STDR. You got to be able to run the damn ball, and you got to be able to stop the damn run. And the New York Giants have not been able to do that this season. But before we get off into that, let me take care of some of these super chats here real quick. And goddamn, this is a big super chat right here. You ain't had to do this, but big shout out to my dog Greg one time in the building, stopping in with the $49.99 super chat. I could do this for about a good 20 minutes for my dog right here. Definitely appreciate you helping us raise the bar over here. Greg says, finally made another live session. Let's get it, go. And that is, man, that's very minimal words that mean a whole lot to me over here. To be able to have somebody, at least one person in the chat that looks at me as a GOAT is definitely high praise, man. Big shout out to my dog, Greg, man. We appreciate you helping us raise the bar over here. And sit back, hang tight. This is going to be a bit of a slow burner. I'm going to say the over-under. We'll set the over-under at about, let's go an hour and 45 minutes. We'll set the over-under right there. But, man, big shout out to Greg, man. Y'all show Greg some love, man. Put some biceps in the chat for Greg one time. That's major right there. Big shout out to the fam. And big shout out to Door Gunner one time in the building with the $5 super chat. Let me see what my dog Door Gunner had to say here. He said, need to wrap our guys in bubble wrap. He says, we are fielding a practice squad team out there. Lattimore, Luke, JD, out for the year now too. He said, fuck my life. I definitely feel you. And when it comes to the injuries, you know that everybody in this chat can absolutely relate. If y'all don't know, Door Gunner is a Washington Commanders fan. And real tough for you guys this season. Shout out to Arabia, who does a lot of content for the Washington Commanders. I heard her put out a piece of content that was just really resonated extremely well with me. And she was talking about, when you're a fan, these were things that, one, she saw coming into the year because the Commanders don't have great balance when it comes to the youth on that roster and when it comes to the veterans on that roster. And last year it worked out for you guys against a more easier schedule. But the one thing that she said that really stood out to me is that just because, and she was speaking on, on her personal behalf here, she said, just because I am a fanatic does not mean that I cannot be pragmatic. And that was just a bar that is going to live with me probably until I'm done creating content, which I don't see that happening anytime soon. And she talked about fans coming into the year, predicting that the Washington Commanders were going to have a 12-win season simply because they are a fanatic. But because you are a fanatic does not mean that you cannot be pragmatic. And I just love that statement there. Tough for you guys. And, for New York Giants fans out there, we're on the other side of the spectrum where we don't have enough veteran leadership in our locker room. We have way too much youth. And Joe Schoen has been thrusting out a lot of these young players, rookies, guys in their second year, and, hoping and banking on those players taking that leap or being able to hit the ground running as rookies. And in return, that has cost the New York Giants a bunch of problems this season. So trust me, I can relate, Door Gunner. And we right there with y'all. Y'all know that this podcast, during the week is labeled the best division in football because we like to talk about not only the Washington Commanders, but the other teams surrounding the NFC East. So for all of y'all out there, struggling within this division, Commanders fans, Cowboys fans, and most importantly, New York Giants fans, yeah, this is definitely going to be a therapy session for all of you guys. And this week is going to be a tough one. By the time we get to the preview show on Thursday with the Beard, I chatted with him yesterday through text, and it was definitely just, very, very down type of vibes from the Beard. Told him get some rest, and we'll chop it up this week. But it's been a very forgettable season for both fan bases. But big shout out to my dog, Door Gunner, for helping us raise the bar over here on Awthentik and the Beard. And big shout out to Frank Concepcion one time in the building with the 199 super chat. He said, Dart, Neighbors, Scatterboo, Tyson combo is going to be flames. We'll see, man. I cannot wait to get to doing some draft coverage. Good to see my dog Dante in the building. Dante, I'm going to be reaching out to you trying to get some tape, to add to some of the tape that I already have and some of my plugs that I got out there. And I can't wait for December because that's when I'm going to really get to, sit down, really do a deep dive on some tape. And then, possibly by then we might know. And if not by then, at least by January, we should know the future of the coaching staff and the front office for the New York Giants so we can get a head start on that as well. But big shout out to Frank Concepcion and big shout out to everybody who early on in the show donating to the channel. And shout out to everybody who's here. Y'all know that y'all presence is what is most important over here. Presence over presence, if you know what I'm saying there. Big shout out to my dog, Premium Pete, one time, one of the best out there. Yeah, and Dante said, I got you, bro. I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. All right, so let's talk about this game a little bit and just some of the topics that, in my opinion, stood out as I kind of let you guys know there before we were talking about the Super Chats. Just, it's all about RTDB and STDR, and the Giants just didn't do a good job of that in this game. And definitely want to focus on Tyrone Tracy a little bit here. You see it on the graphic. We'll talk about it here a little bit. The inability of the New York Giants to be able to establish a true, consistent running game. And this kind of dates back to even when Cam Scatterboo was here. The Giants rushed for 117 yards as a team on Sunday. And that might not seem, that egregious, right? But when you look at it as basically half of the yards came from Jaxson Dart, 56 of those rushing yards came from Jaxson Dart, not a good day from the running back by committee for the New York Giants. Devin Singletary was good. And I think that the Giants might want to experiment a little bit more with playing some of these players that are inevitably not a part of the future for the New York Giants. Like, I'm seeing a lot of Commanders fans that are saying that down by 31, Jaden Daniels should have been out of the game. And one of my good homies, Sandbox homies, was telling me about it earlier before I went on air today. And I told him that I didn't necessarily quite agree with that, but I do understand that everyone has opinions on the situation. And in hindsight, it's easier to say when a player gets injured to be like, oh, you should have took him out the game. And I've said that about Jaxson Dart at times when we were down late in games this season, that maybe it would have been a good idea to see Jameis Winston come out there and get some reps to maybe try to bolster up his trade value. But Devin Singletary was good on the day. 8 rushes for 43 yards, averaging 5.4 yards per carry. And the deadline's tomorrow. So if there is a team that's out there that's a running back needy team, maybe we can find a way to maybe deal a guy like Devin Singletary in a trade and maybe get back minimal capital, but possibly get something back. There have been rumors, shout out to Pretty Ricky, who's been saying that the New England Patriots are absolutely going to trade for a running back. Now, I don't know if a guy like Devin Singletary necessarily checks the box for them because they might need maybe a higher caliber running back. But it was a good day for Devin Singletary. I think that the only thing that he lacked was opportunity on the day. But Tyrone Tracy versus the 49ers, just not good. Just a pathetic day. 5 rushes for 18 yards, and you could tell that Mike Kafka and Brian Dable went with the hot hand on the day in Devin Singletary. Tyrone Tracy has now gone 14 straight games without breaching 60 yards. And if you've been following what we do over here on Awthentik and the Beard and on the Giant Overreaction, I brought attention to this when Tyrone Tracy was on a 5-game streak of being under 60 rushing yards. And I didn't panic at that point in time, but I just said it's something that we need to monitor. And now Tyrone Tracy has gone 14 straight games under 60 yards. And in those 14 games, he's averaging 3.7 yards per carry. Now, in Tyrone Tracy's first 10 games last season with Daniel Jones, he was averaging over 5 yards per carry. And since Daniel Jones has been released, it has been basically Tyrone Tracy going out there and showing you that either he is a shell of himself or that he truly needs a quarterback with the legs. But we have that, right? You have that in Jaxson Dart. So now that excuse, we can kind of throw that out the window. I think Tyrone Tracy, it has to do with maybe the injuries and also just Tyrone Tracy not being that level of a running back. I'm the kind of content creator or whatever you want to call me that I try to not be a prisoner of the moment. And when fans were telling me that Tyrone Tracy is absolutely a hit in the draft because he was knocking on the door of 900 yards last year, I really broke it down and looked at it like in a 17-game span, 900 yards is really not all that great. Now, to give Tyrone Tracy the benefit of the doubt, early on in the 2024 season, he was not the main running back for the New York Giants, and he definitely lacked opportunity. But as we got off into the season and got around week 4, week 5, we saw Tyrone Tracy turn into the running back 1 for the New York Giants. And a lot of people at the end of the year last year were telling me, well, Tyrone Tracy's likely seeing stacked boxes. And that was not the case. Tyrone Tracy was seeing stacked boxes around 20% last year. This year, Tyrone Tracy is seeing stacked boxes on just 10% of his rushing attempts. When Cam Scadaboo was in the game, and I talked to you guys about Cam Scadaboo, that teams do not want to just send 6 or less, because if you have just 6 or less in the box against Cam Scadaboo, he's going to get automatic yardage. But this year, he is seeing stacked boxes, which is 8 or more in the box, at a 23.8% clip, which is double Tyrone Tracy. So teams understand their mission there when approaching how to stop the New York Giants rushing attack. And when Cam Scadaboo was in the game, it was definitely different. But the thing that bothers me a little bit, and it doesn't bother me in an egregious way, but it just bothers me, is that the New York Giants do not have a 100-yard rusher on the season all year long. Cam Scadaboo was the one to get closest to that with 98 yards versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And in every loss this season, 60 is that magic number. In every loss this season, the Giants' leading running back does not have 60 yards or more. We're not going to be able to get it done like that. And just 13 rushing attempts by the New York Giants running backs on Sunday. That's on Dable and that's on Kafka. You got to find a way to be able to put your running backs in better position. You got to be able to find a way to not abandon the running game when your team is down on the scoreboard. And this has been a reoccurring theme with Brian Dable and Mike Kafka as they have called plays for the New York Giants. So for the fans that are out there, it's not going to be me, because I'm not going to be the one that's going to be calling for people's jobs. Y'all know that's not my style when it comes to the coaching staff or the front office. I'm just going to wait because none of that is within my power. But at this current moment in time, I will tell you this, as I told you guys last season when we were having troubles at the quarterback position. Streets need a body. It's basically what it is. Big shout out to my dog, Paulie. Y'all know what it is. The Giant streets need a body right now, because when it comes to running the ball, when it comes to weapons on the offensive side of the ball, when it comes to aiding this young quarterback in Jaxson Dart, The Giants front office and the Giants coaching staff have not done a great job of putting that quarterback in position to go out there and win games. And honestly, the quarterback is doing everything in his power outside of not getting killed out there on that field, and he's been damn close to doing that. But the Giants coaching staff and the front office have done this kid no favors. And we know that, it's very likely that when a quarterback gets drafted in the first round, that he's going to be going to a team that, has not had a lot of success in the past and likely will be a team that is, not in position to win games. And that is the case with Jaxson Dart here with the New York Giants. The other thing is stopping the run. Giants have done a terrible job stopping the run, and this dates back before any of these guys got here. But that's not to dismiss them at all. The inability to stop the run for the New York Giants has been a major issue. 49ers rushed for 159 yards, which doesn't sound as bad as some of these other games have been, like 276 versus the Philadelphia Eagles or like 220 versus the Washington Commanders in week 1. But 39 rushing attempts in this game for the San Francisco 49ers, and that's without a mobile quarterback, without a dual-threat quarterback. We're talking Mac Jones here, who's not a threat to run the ball at all. So this is all damage done by the San Francisco 49ers running backs, who averaged 4.1 yards per carry on the day. And that 159 yards is basically on par for what the New York Giants are allowing on the season. Now, through 9 weeks, the New York Giants are allowing 150 rushing yards per game, 150 flat, which is 31st in the NFL right now. I think it's only behind the Cincinnati Bengals. And if you've been seeing what is going on with the Cincinnati Bengals, they're literally having a war within their locker room, within both sides of the ball, where Jamar Chase had to come up to the podium yesterday and said, listen, I'm not answering questions about the defense anymore because I'm not trying to get screamed at by the defense. We all know the Cincinnati Bengals have the worst defense in the league, and the New York Giants are not far behind them. And that is absolutely unacceptable considering the type of personnel that the Giants brought in this year. But the Giants now are allowing nearly 8 rushing first downs per game. They're allowing 7.9 first downs on the ground per game, which is 5th worst. Christian McCaffrey is a running back that I can't front to y'all. This game really had me thinking about Saquon Barkley. Because if you remove CMC from the equation with the 49ers, that team they're nothing. And I know a lot of New York Giants fans used to say, well, we didn't win games with Saquon Barkley here. But that is because our coaching staff and our front office has been inept in trying to figure out ways to build this offense and, the team in total. On the preview show, when we talked about Christian McCaffrey, I talked about him as a pass catcher. And I told everybody in our fan base here to watch out for him as far as how he is going to be utilized in the passing attack for the 49ers, because they're banged up at the wide receiver position just like we are. And they don't have a lot of options out there at wide receiver as well. The 49ers came into week 9 targeting running backs on 27% of their pass attempts this season, which is the highest in the NFL by 10%. 28 rushes for CMC for 106 yards, averaging 3.8 yards per carry, which is not all that great. 3.9 yards per carry is the benchmark where I like to have my running back at, especially when you are utilizing him as a bell cow the way that the 49ers utilize CMC on the day. But when you add the receptions, 5 receptions for 67 receiving yards and a touchdown, he had 2 touchdowns on the day. He really was their only weapon on offense. He was their offense. He led the 49ers in rushing. He led the 49ers in receiving yards. It's the 37th time that CMC has had at least 50 rushing and 50 receiving yards in a game. McCaffrey has been the 49ers leader in receiving yards in 3 games now this season, and he has had over 100 scrimmage yards in 8 of their 9 games this year. The approach and the plan for the New York Giants was very simple in this game. And when I broke this down on the preview show, I said it starts by stopping the run with CMC, and then I said, or does it? Because I wanted to implement the pass attack and how CMC is utilized in the pass attack. So really, in this game, and I can't sit up here and say all the New York Giants had to do was stop CMC, but I will say that the plan was very apparent. It was stop CMC in this game. CMC now has the most games with a rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown in NFL history. He just passed Marshall Faulk. He has 16 games of such. Marshall Faulk had 15 of those games. Over the last 3 games, the New York Giants are absolutely terrible as far as the way that their rush defense has been performing or not performing. They're allowing 6 yards per carry over the last 3 games. They're allowing 192.3 rushing yards per game over the last 3 games. Strictly Giants on Twitter said it basically perfect. He said, "Don't you think this is more of a GM problem? The talent isn't good, consistently injured, and shallow depth every year." And I do agree with that. Although on paper, this starting defense is supposed to be much better than they appear to be in the 2025 season. But the Giants' rush defense, when you look at how bad they are this year, they were just as bad when Shane Bowen wasn't here. And again, this is not to dismiss the lack of productivity from this coaching staff, but the Giants' rush defense was 23rd in 2023, and they were 28th in 2022. They were allowing 132.4 rushing yards per game in 2023. In 2022, when we went to the playoffs, they were even worse. They were allowing 146.3 rushing yards per game. That was underneath Wink Martindale. And I will continue to say, let's not rewrite history. A lot of people now are saying, oh, man, I wish we had Wink Martindale here. But they didn't want that when Wink Martindale was here, and a lot of these numbers support those facts. This year, the New York Giants are allowing 150 rushing yards per game, but that's not that far off from what we saw in 2022 when they were allowing 146.3. So, again, and I know the personnel is different. We didn't have Abdul Carter in 2022. We did not have Brian Burns in 2022. But we had some pretty decent edge rushers who were built exactly the same archetype, the same prototype of build that we are seeing from Brian Burns and from Kayvon Thibodeau that, in my opinion, are the reasoning why teams are having so much success rushing the ball outside of the tackles on the New York Giants. Off the top, I think it was 6.9 yards coming into this game. Shout out to Justin Pennick, who brought up that statistic. But 6.9 yards rushing to the outside of tackles per game versus the New York Giants. Why do we think that is? It has to be because we have lean, speed edge rushers on the outside. But that does not dismiss the lack of productivity that we are seeing from Dexter Lawrence on the interior portion of this defense. Carl Banks was absolutely right to call out Dexter Lawrence. And for me as a fan, quite frankly, I'm getting tired of seeing Dexter Lawrence go up to the podium and just look the camera in the eyes and just be like, yeah, and there's no fight there. There's no urgency there. I think it was Pat Leonard that asked him, do you want to be a New York Giant, moving forward? And he just said, yes, I want to be a New York Giant. And I get it. There's a thin line between being professional and just being stoic, right? I get that. But at the end of the day, the fans want to see a player that is trying to find ways or exhausting ways to try to be able to get better. And it just doesn't seem like Dexter Lawrence is really giving us that. But I'm not going to sit up here and tell you Dexter Lawrence is some bad player or anything like that. I think Dexter Lawrence is a great player. I think he's a great player on a bad team. And I think that he's now falling victim to what a lot of the fan base has fell victim to, which is our conditioning is being conditioned. And when I say that, I mean that Dexter Lawrence has been in a losing situation for so long that he doesn't even know how to approach dealing with the media or coming up there and trying to find ways to be able to come up with a type of philosophy for the New York Giants to win games. And in return, you're looking at a guy that comes up to the podium week in and week out, and he is extremely dejected. But the Giants just have not been able to stop the run even before Shane Bowen got here. They weren't able to stop the run with Wink Martindale. They weren't able to stop the run when we had Patrick Graham here. They weren't able to stop the run when we had homie from the Arizona Cardinals. I forget my dog's name, and with good reason, because his results were very forgettable. Now, the names on the paper looked great coming into the season, but results matter, y'all. The Giants, in my opinion, have a personnel problem just as much as they have a coaching problem. I tweeted this out after the game. I said the Giants defense has a personnel issue, but no one wants to talk about it because most of us fell for the top 5 bullshit coming into the season. If you can't stop the run, you won't win a lot of games. This isn't dismissing the coaching staff, but players have to play. Look at Brian Burns. Brian Burns is having a career year right now with the New York Giants. There's no excuse there. You're not seeing Brian Burns come up to the podium with any excuses because he is leaving it all out there on the field. And for somebody that questioned a little bit of the amount of money that we paid for Brian Burns, the $28 million AAV, and also asked him to raise his level of play in the middle of the 2024 season. And a lot of fans gave me pushback on that. But Brian Burns went out there this year in 2025, and he literally left no stone unturned. That dude is living up to the money. And when you look at some of the contracts that are coming out for other edge rushers right now in the NFL, that $28 million per year for Brian Burns is absolutely worth it right now. Now, let's talk about the quarterback a little bit. And before I do that, let me tap in with the chat. I think I did see no, we're good on the chat. I thought I saw another super chat come in there, but it looks like we're good to go. I see Phase 11 or Phase 114 is in the building. What's going on, fam? Not a lot is good. He said what's good. Not a lot is good right now in New York Giants Nation, but we appreciate y'all being here, rocking out with us today on a Giant Overreaction. Let's talk about Jaxson Dart, man. So really the only thing going good for us right now on the offensive side of the ball is Jaxson Dart. And in this game, he was 24-33, 191 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, another game with no turnovers, a quarterback rating of 107, 56 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown to add to the 2 passing touchdowns. And he was only sacked 2 times on the day. The 8 carries for 56 yards, man, that's something that we're becoming almost accustomed to seeing from Jaxson Dart. He had that streak where he had 3 straight games over 50 yards, and then that was broke last week. And now he gets right back on track with 56 yards in this one. Sacked just 2 times in this game, I think, speaks to where I'll say at least I thought this offensive line, could raise their level of play with this type of quarterback playing. But more importantly, I think a lot of it has to do with the pocket manipulation from Jaxson Dart. He's just incredible in the pocket. His lateral movement is so good. His agility in the pocket might be top 5 in the NFL right now. I mean, this kid, he moves around like a wide receiver. Like, he is that agile. And he was pressured on just 9 of his 40 dropbacks, which is just 22.5% out of 26 quarterbacks. So that does speak volumes to the offensive line. They played well. Out of 26 quarterbacks, Jaxson Dart was the 4th least pressured quarterback in week 9. That's great considering how things looked last week. His time to throw was 2.62 seconds. And that's not to be confused with, thinking that an offensive line that is performing well should have a higher number as far as time to throw goes. That means that Jaxson Dart was playing within structure, and that was good to see. A great example of Jaxson Dart playing within structure in this game was the touchdown on the opening drive to Theo Johnson. He looked to his left. I saw Brian Baldinger break this down in a great way. But Jaxson Dart looked to his left. I believe it was Ray McLeod out there, man-to-man. Didn't have his DB stacked. So Jaxson Dart just moved, went through his progressions, found Theo Johnson out there in the flat, and then Theo Johnson did a really good job of making a man miss and reaching out for the touchdown. But Jaxson Dart, man, just week in and week out, I still see a couple of people that are saying Jaxson Dart's not good. This quarterback, all he does is come off his first read and run the ball. But I don't know what they're seeing. Jaxson Dart right now is looking really good. And, you look at the company that he is, being mentioned in as far as breaking records and statistical starts. This dude is looking really good right now. And as a guy that supported him coming out the draft and had him as QB2, I'll continue to say that this is a beautiful thing to see for me, and this is a first. And Jaxson Dart was blitzed on just 15% of his dropbacks. So I think teams are understanding that, you don't necessarily just want to dial up all these 0 blitzes and trying to have Jaxson Dart just in panic, because he's a quarterback that is very cool, calm, and collective under pressure. This was a number that really surprised me too, and I think that the running back and tight end statistics kind of inflate this number a little bit, because Jaxson Dart and, the coaching staff from an offensive perspective with Mike Kafka and Brian Dable, they're targeting the tight ends a lot. And they're running out of a lot of 12 and 13 personnel. But Jaxson Dart's average target separation was 4.1 yards. It was 4th best in week 9. So that's kind of interesting. I know that these guys, are being viewed as UPS workers, Walmart workers, Uber drivers, I've heard, all of that. But I think that the separation is not necessarily the issue. Hanging on to the ball has definitely been an issue. We're going to talk about that as well, too. But Dart was also the leading rusher for the New York Giants with the 56 yards. I believe that was his first game of the season where he was the leading rusher and the leading passer for the New York Giants. But Jaxson Dart, first quarterback ever with a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown in 5 of his first 6 starts. And the only other rookie quarterbacks to do so in 5 or more games in a season was Cam Newton and Justin Herbert. And what do those 2 guys have in common? Both of those guys won Offensive Rookie of the Year. So, again, that is great, great company to be within. And Jaxson Dart is just, man, he's checking a lot of boxes for me. And I'm excited to have Jaxson Dart be our quarterback moving forward. Not just because like he was my guy, but just because he's playing that good right now. And I do think that if he had some help around him right now, that Jaxson Dart would be viewed as possibly a top 10 quarterback in the league. And that might be an egregious statement, but I really, truly do, in my heart think that. Like, if this guy had a Malik Neighbors and another weapon out there, he would absolutely be viewed as very similar as how Jaden Daniels was viewed in his rookie season. But just not a lot of help from the pass catchers, man. And I know we're dealing with injuries, but next man up. And when next man is up, you got to step up. I thought Gunnar Olszewski made a great catch on that beautiful touchdown throw from Jaxson Dart. That was one of the highlights of the day for me. And I think that Brian Dable and Mike Kafka might want to look to Gunnar Olszewski to get a little bit, some more opportunity on the offensive side of the ball, not just being a return specialist, but just 58 yards after the catch, just 58 yak yards for the New York Giants wide receivers in this game. Big drops from Theo Johnson, big drop from Darius Slayton on what would have been another touchdown. And it's kind of embarrassing from a general manager standpoint because Joe Schoen went out there and he paid Darius Slayton $36 million over 3 years. And that contract is looking absolutely fucking terrible right now. And the day we signed Darius Slayton, and this is not any shade on Darius Slayton. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that I've been saying Darius Slayton is some low-level wide receiver ever since I've been up here since 2019. I normally call Darius Slayton old reliable because when things are always going wrong, Darius Slayton normally can find a way to step up, come into the lineup, and have a little bit of productivity. But I think that a lot of that had to do with his chemistry with Daniel Jones, that he clearly does not have that same chemistry with Jaxson Dart. But the day we signed Darius Slayton to that 3-year, $36 million contract, I quote tweeted the breaking news, and I said the Giants are not a serious franchise. A lot of people gave me pushback, like, why are you mad at this signing? Darius Slayton is a good wide receiver, da-da-da-da-da. And the reason why I said that is because you need to find a way to move off of these guys that are a part of the old regime and that are a part of the old New York Giants ways, and more importantly, that are a part of the losing culture for the New York Giants. So when Joe Schoen signed him, I'm just like, we could go out there and get another wide receiver that's going to give you that productivity for less money. You look at Odell Beckham Jr. even. Odell Beckham Jr. in his last full season, in the NFL, where he played with the Baltimore Ravens, he put up basically the same numbers that we got out of Darius Slayton in 2024. There are countless wide receivers in free agency and other guys that you could have acquired via trade. But more importantly, the New York Giants had to address wide receiver, even with the healthy Malik Neighbors. They should have done that in the offseason. And by doing that, I don't mean signing Darius Slayton to a $36 million contract. I'm talking about addressing it through the draft with guys that were available on day 2 and day 3 that could have came out here and been contributors. I don't know if you guys watched the game last night against the Washington Commanders and you saw Torrey Horton out there. He had 2 touchdowns in that game, and he's also a contributor on special teams. He is a guy that a lot of us were talking about in the offseason. If you are in the chat and part of this family over here on AATB, and you saw some of the stuff that I was talking about on Bleacher Report, you know about Jay Gadsby and my dog, who recommended a lot of great running backs for us and also recommended Torrey Horton. He was like, a lot of people are forgetting about Torrey Horton because he was injured this year, which prompted me to go in and look at all the tape on Torrey Horton. And I was like, holy shit, this is a wide receiver 2 at worst case scenario right now. This guy was a star at Colorado State. And he was somebody I encouraged the New York Giants to go out there and draft. And I think he ended up going on day 3. Instead, we're spending day 3 capital on guys that are not being contributors to the New York Giants. And more importantly, we did not address the offense. So I just don't get it. And now I got people telling me that we should pay Wan'Dale Robinson and we should extend Wan'Dale Robinson. And they're willing to pay Wan'Dale Robinson $15 million AAV. And in my opinion, that's just fucking crazy right now. Because Wan'Dale Robinson, it's not that he's a bad wide receiver, but I don't want to go out there and pay a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson $15 million. Because when guys get injured, Wan'Dale Robinson is not the kind of wide receiver that can step up and make things happen on his own. He needs that supporting cast. He needs a Malik Neighbors, and he likely needs another wide receiver on the outside as well that can contribute so that he can do what he does best out of the slot position. But I'm not paying Wan'Dale Robinson $15 million. No way. There's no way I would do that. And the injuries are continuously piling up for the New York Giants right now. Darius Muasau went out of this game with an ankle injury, and it's not like Darius Muasau has been a great contributor for the New York Giants, but the New York Giants just do not have any inside linebackers that are going to be able to step up right now, and that is of the fault of Joe Schoen. Bo Collins went out of this game with an injury as well. John Michael Smith left this game with a shin injury. Jermaine Illuminor left this game early as well. We saw Marcus Bowe come in, and you absolutely saw why Marcus Bowe is not ready to be a starting right tackle in this league right now. And then you also had Corey Black, who hobbled off the field late in this one as well. It's been a tough 2025 season for the New York Giants. The injuries are a part of it, but also the neglect on the offensive side of the ball absolutely has to do with it. And I think the thing that, that leaves me a little bit puzzled here is that I don't know what the philosophy and the approach was this year. Did John Mara and Joe Schoen take a step back and say, hey, we have to rebuild. We need to go out there and get our quarterback. We need to bolster up this defense in year one, and then we'll address the offense next year? Or did they go out there and say, hey, we're going to compete this year? Whether it be Russell Wilson, whether it be Jameis Winston, or whether it be Jaxson Dart. I don't know. But as Giants fans, we're left scratching our damn head right now, looking at these matchups, and the last 3 weeks in particular really speak volumes as to a franchise that is not competing. The first 5-6 games of the season, you could say the New York Giants were competing. And checking some boxes for me, at least as a fan. And I will continue to say this, that I'm still having, fun watching the New York Giants play on Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays, whatever it is. I'm still having fun watching them play because Jaxson Dart, that's it. That's literally it. I get to watch a franchise quarterback that's going out there and at least making these games interesting to watch. And I see the chats correcting me on the Jermaine Illuminor stuff. He actually did not dress for this game. It was Marcus Bowe the entire game. So, again, you saw why Marcus Bowe is not really a starting caliber right tackle right now at this point. And we're still dealing with Evan Neal. The trade deadline is tomorrow. And he was asked about a trade. And he basically said, none of that stuff is in my power. They asked him, do you want to continue to be a New York Giants for the rest of your career? And he said, none of that stuff is in my power. So I'm only going to worry about what I can control. It's tough, man. It's tough. I want to tap in with the chat real quick before we get off into a couple of Giant overreactions and just see where y'all are at with it. We'll work our way backwards. Trees is in the building one time. Trees said the money spent on Russell Wilson could have got a better, not great cornerback or better backup players. Joe has no idea how to build a team. Now, I do agree with this statement in hindsight, 100%. But when we did bring in Russell Wilson, I was excited about that move. I thought that it would bring a little bit of competence at the quarterback position. And viewing Jaxson Dart as still a project coming into the 2025 NFL Draft, I was a little bit worried about throwing him to the Wolves early on. As the season started to progress and, we started off 0-3, I thought it was in the New York Giants' best interest to go out there and start Jaxson Dart at least before we got to the Chargers game, because the season was basically gone. When you start off 0-3, your chances of making the playoffs are so low. So in hindsight, I got to agree with you on this. Yeah, and you look at the Graham Gano contract. There are so many contracts in hindsight we could look at. James Hudson. James Hudson is getting $6 million a year, and he's not going to play. So you combine that with Russell Wilson. That's $10 million on Russell Wilson. That's $6 million AAV on James Hudson. I forget how much we're paying Graham Gano, but you're looking at $20 million basically wasted, And, again, in hindsight, it's something that, you could look at and be like, wow, Giants could have used that money elsewhere, and 100% agree with you on that. And Tree says, we had Jameis, why bring Wilson in? And that's where it's incompetence on the general manager and on the front office, because why are you double dipping at the quarterback position? If you needed a stopgap, if you needed a bridge quarterback, Jameis Winston could have absolutely checked those boxes, and that's where I do agree with you 100%. You should not have double dipped on veteran quarterbacks. It didn't make any sense. Let's see. Genesis says we should have cut Gano. Don't know why they brought him back. Yeah, absolutely. And, the one thing I'll say is a lot of people are saying we still can't find a kicker. Look at the Washington Commanders. They're a good example of how it is not easy to find a kicker once you fuck that up at the beginning of the season. And the Giants absolutely fucked that up at the beginning of the year. And now they're, looking in all directions trying to find a kicker. And Young Ho Koo, who has not even played this year, to Jude, whatever his last name is, Makatami, going out there struggling, missing extra points and missing field goals as well. It's not easy to find a kicker in season. It's why you want to iron out these deficiencies in the offseason. That's a great point right there from Genesis. Journey NFL says, I think bringing in Wilson was necessary. Gave time for Dart to adjust to the NFL as well as providing a great locker room presence. I agree with this. You just wish that it was Russell Wilson and not Jameis Winston, right? Because you didn't need both of the quarterbacks. And I think that some of these things as far as leadership goes, Jaxson Dart could have learned some of those things from Jameis Winston as well. Both Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson are the perfect example of what a professional veteran quarterback looks like. You really didn't need both of them, but I do agree with you that Russell Wilson, was a bit of a necessary move, but bringing in both of the quarterbacks, I can't agree that was a necessary move. Trees says San Francisco got more injuries than us. No excuses. Yeah, and, they had a reliable player on the offensive side of the ball that they could turn to in Christian McCaffrey. And, also they have a guy like George Kittle at the tight end position. They still got some firepower on that offense. And Mac Jones is a capable quarterback. We saw that in his rookie season. And we've seen what Kyle Shanahan can do with quarterbacks in their second stint. And you saw the results of that on Sunday against the New York Giants. So I think that, the San Francisco 49ers got more injuries than we do, but the San Francisco 49ers are a better just overall team and also a better coach team. They have stability at that coaching position for sure. Shout out my dog, Greg Turd Hauler in the building. He says, quote unquote, playing great defense and special teams and a ball control type of offense. These are the ingredients that make the Giants the Giants. John Madden live broadcast. Damn, rest in peace to John Madden. And those are staple characteristics of what the New York Giants have been in the past, just not the recent past, which is unfortunate for all of us as Giants fans. Let's see what else we got here. Timmy Foosball says all teams have injuries. It's no excuse. Roster is not built well enough. Failure is on Joe Shane. Next man up and win the fucking game. Yeah, I don't think anybody's using our excuses as excuses, right? Like, you really can't. Because, one, I also think this is the part I don't agree with Timmy Foosball here at the end of it, is just win the fucking game. I didn't expect the Giants to do that a lot this year. But I do think a lot of fans thought that the Giants were a team that could go out there and win a lot of games this year. So for me, again, I'm still having fun watching this year because of the quarterback. But I came into this season with very minimal expectations for this team. And when I predicted that this team would win 6 games, I almost was like, there was a part of me that felt like if everything went right, they could win 8 games, maybe be knocking on the door of 9 games. But I only said that 6 to be a little bit optimistic. In my heart of hearts, because they didn't address the offense, I kind of expected this offense to look a lot like what it looked like last year. I thought that maybe the points per game was going to go up a little bit. But when you look at the New York Giants over like the last 5 games in points per game, they're up there near the top half of the league. They're in the top half of the league. And that's something that I did not expect. I didn't expect that this offense was going to be the front-running unit for this team in 2025, considering all the moves that we made in the offseason from a free agency standpoint and addressing a lot of the defensive needs in the draft. I thought the Giants were going to be a team that was front-run by the defense. Definitely not the case, and this is something that I don't think any fan could have predicted coming into this year. Shout out Hooks Rub in the building, says bad depth. Injuries happen to every team. Our depth has not been good at all. A lot of positions the last several seasons. At a lot of positions the last several seasons. And listen, I think that Joe Shane went out there and tried to address things. Like, I saw somebody saying that Joe Shane did not address his failure to address the defensive tackle position. And I'm like, that's not true. He went out there, spent money on Roy Robertson Harris. He went out there and spent the 3rd-round pick on Darius Alexander. He's already brought in players, DJ Davidson, a bunch of other guys, Nacho, that are already guys that aren't excelling at the defensive tackle position. So he did try to address those positions. The problem is that Joe Shane is not a great evaluator of talent. That's the biggest problem, because he's spending resources and he's allocating dollars towards these positions, but he's not getting the results. And I don't know if you could sit up here and blame the coaches all for the reasoning why the New York Giants defense is not getting results, or the New York Giants team in general is not getting results. I think the personnel that they're picking is just not good enough. And also the coaches are not finding ways to elevate that minimal talent that we have on this roster. So it's a recipe for a disaster for sure. Simeon Toko said, you'd think that Shane would become a better GM with experience, but once an accountant, always an accountant. That's a good point right there as well. That's definitely a good point as well. The Illa's in the building. Big shout out my dog, The Illa. Make sure y'all go subscribe to The Illa. I haven't caught up on a lot of your recent content. I got to go over to your channel and check out what you've been talking about. Always respect The Illa's opinion over here. He says, hell, we could have arguably had a wide receiver 2 in Dalton Kincaid if we would have taken him over Banks 3 years ago. Tight end or not, he plays the game like a wide receiver. Exactly what I said before that draft took place. Man, that's facts right there. And we are seeing that. And we have addressed tight end. This goes back to what I was just saying to Illa. Like, we spend resources on positions, but the resources that we are bringing in are just not talented enough. Like, you look at all the tight ends they brought in, from Thomas Fidone this past draft, Theo Johnson the draft before that, Darren Waller in a trade with a third-round pick the year before that, with Daniel Bellinger the year before that. They're spending hella resources on the tight end position, and in return, really not getting much out of it. I will say this, though. With the injuries that the New York Giants have had, at least they are able to go out there and run 12 and 13 personnel and have success, at least minimal success, and be able to move the ball. I don't think this is necessarily the game that is a good example of that, because you look at the Giants from, after the first drive all the way basically into the fourth quarter, and they had no productivity on the offensive side of the ball. But I would say generally throughout the season, the Giants, when Malik Nabers goes down and missing Darius Slayton for a good portion of this year as well, they found ways to move the ball through the tight end, which, granted, those players don't look like they're going to be, juggernauts at the position moving forward. At least we're finding ways to be able to utilize that 12 and 13 personnel. And a lot of that has to, be of the credit to Jaxson Dart and what he is doing as well. But this is another great point from the Illa right here. Let's see. Greg Turdhaller said, until the Giants get back to our defensive identity, then nothing will go right for us. Totally agree with that as well. Got no pushback from me on that one. Mac the Giants fan says, I like Wan'Dale, but no way am I paying him $15 million. Yeah, me either. Like, I think Wan'Dale can be a good player, a good role player at the slot position, a depth piece, but also I think he's overutilized, and that is, we're forced to do that now with Malik Nabers on the sidelines. But coming into this season, I wanted to see Malik Nabers take a few more snaps in the slot. In 2024, he was at 27% of his snaps being in the slot. I could have seen that number boost up just a little bit, maybe 32, 33%, something like that. And, the injury definitely stripped that away from us from being able to see that. Shout out my dog, Dean, in the building one time. Dean said, salute to you, bruh. I was waiting for this after watching your BR stream last night. Shane needs to go, man. Every year he misevaluates the state/needs of the team. Slayton looks horrendous. Yeah, Slayton looks absolutely terrible this year. I'm not sure the numbers, but I saw he was like basically under 200 yards on the year. And being a guy that is supposed to be the wide receiver that should be stepping up with Malik Nabers out and turning ultimately into a wide receiver 1, Darius Slayton has absolutely just not done that. And I just want to take a look at his numbers just for my own good, because I know that these numbers are nothing, to write home about, but I just want to have some accuracy on this stream here one time. Yeah, Darius Slayton now has over 200 yards with the 62 yards he had on Sunday against the San Francisco 49ers. He has 19 receptions for 254 yards, averaging 13.4 yards per reception. So basically, Darius Slayton is on pace for about 40 receptions and about 500 yards. And that's basically what he put out there last year. And that's just not good enough, man. Big shout out to my homie Dean one time in the building. Definitely appreciate you pulling up, rocking out with us, and having your presence in the building. And the super chat definitely helps us raise the bar over here, and that goes a long way, my dog. All right. It looked like we might hit that under today if I keep things, on track here. Let's see what else we got, though. I want to get a couple more from the chat, and then we'll keep it pushing here. I did see one. Mac the Giants fan said San Francisco's best 2 players on defense and their number 1 wide receiver are out, and they still go out there and compete. Yeah, and I do think that just San Francisco's just a better run organization. That's for fact, right? And the depth that they have over there is much better than the depth that we have. I'm not saying Mac is necessarily doing this, but the Giants are a bad team that cannot afford injuries. The San Francisco 49ers are a good team that cannot afford injuries. There is a difference there for sure. And when I look at Brandon Ayuk as the number one wide receiver, I know he had that one huge year over 1,500 yards. I still think he's kind of more of a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1B, in my opinion. Shout out to Ang117 says, giving Russ the starting job without competition was egregious. It's just systematic failures in all aspects of the game. Yeah, I do agree. I do agree with that. Shout out, let me see, this is, I'm going to say PW Cho. We're going to call you 50 for today. Shout out 50 in the building one time rocking out with us today. Said, smash mouth football, control the clock. That's vintage New York Giants football. That's what we need. And I know a lot of people don't like to, acknowledge that it is still important to be able to utilize your running backs and run the ball. And just look at the Indianapolis Colts and just look at how poor of a game they had this past Sunday against the Pittsburgh Steelers when they were not able to run the ball. There are 2 types of quarterbacks in this league, and I've said this dating all the way back to 2019. There are elite quarterbacks that do not need a running game to be able to excel, and then there's a category of every other quarterback, and all those other quarterbacks need a rushing attack. Every last one of them. And especially if you're a game manager style type of quarterback that doesn't have those characteristics to be able to go above and beyond the X's and O's, to be able to extend plays, buy time with your legs, you absolutely need a rushing attack in the NFL. But, guys like Joe Shane, and there are some others around the league that tried to devalue the running back position. Those comments from those guys are starting to appear as asinine as time goes on. When you look around the league, most of the teams that have a steady, heavy dosage of a running game are teams that are going to be bidding for a playoff berth in that particular season. So totally agree with 50 here one time. And I'm all about smash mouth football. I'm all about RTDB. Timmy Foosball says, would anyone actually be bothered if we fired Shane and Dable today? I'm genuinely interested in the answer from the chat. I mean, I don't think anybody would care. I'm probably one of the only people in the New York Giants fan base that is not like actively every week speaking on fire these guys, fire them now. I just reserve judgment. It's out of my power. I'm just going to let, the chips fall where they may. But even me, if they were fired as we were on stream right now, I would have no problem with it. I don't think the chat would have any issues with it as well. Let's see. Timmy Foosball said 49ers, Broncos, Cowboys, Saints were all more than beatable. I refer to my previous point, win the fucking game. I don't know if the 49ers were a beatable team. I mean, we just got dog walked by the 49ers. The Broncos, we should have beat them. That's a game where you allowed 33 points in the fourth quarter. Saints game, you should have beat them. Cowboys, I can't sit up here and say, like we should have beat them. I agree with you that they were beatable in that position there. And our defense let us down again, man. Your offense goes out there and scores 37 points, and your defense gives up 40. And again, man, like I went back and looked at the end of that game, the Dallas Cowboys game. I don't put that one on Bowen. I put that one on the personnel. Like, before we move on, Tyler Nubin, I don't like calling out players. Take a look at some of the tape from this past game on Tyler Nubin. And when you're done looking at the tape on Tyler Nubin, go back and look at some highlights from somebody like a Steve Atwater or a Ronnie Lott or an Ed Reed, and look at how they approach the run game. And I'm not sitting up here telling you that I expect Tyler fucking Nubin to be Steve Atwater, but you are an NFL safety. You cannot continuously, every time the run is coming right at you, find some kind of a way to avoid contact. Tyler Nubin plays the game like a fucking wide receiver. And you cannot be a starting safety in the league if you are or in fear of putting your helmet and getting down and dirty in the running game. The Giants personnel is just not good enough. It's just not good enough. And I'm not sitting up here telling you guys that I told you so about the personnel, because I thought the personnel was actually pretty damn good going into the year. They went out there and they got my dog, Paulson Adebo. They went out there and they got Javon Holland to correct some of the mistakes from what they, from when they allowed Xavier McKinney to walk, and Julian Love. We'll lump him into that. And they addressed the 3-tech defensive tackle. And still, this defense is fucking dog water. I don't understand it. Supreme Omega said 87 points in 3 games is diabolical. It really is. It really is, man. It really is. Let me see this one from Quota. Quota said, I don't know who the head coach should be, but what do you think about McCown as our offensive coordinator and Ed Reed as our defensive coordinator? Reed has expressed interest in being a defensive coordinator and said he would have more of an impact than just a position coach. I'm going to keep my opinions a little bit reserved until we get to that, that hurdle, and we got to, walk up that mountain of trying to find a head coach, a new offensive coordinator, and a defensive coordinator. Right now, all candidates are on the table for me. That's how I'll answer it until we get to that point. Hooks Rub said, yes, he did address it, but for some of these key places like wide receiver, defensive back, linebacker, offensive line, and kicker, the depth pieces have not been good enough or just haven't performed well at all. You're correct. Yeah, right there with you on that, and depth has always been an issue. Ralph Fletch says, I disagree. Yeah, players not playing up to the expectations, but I think it's on the coaching to get the best out of players and motivate them. So maybe that's not truly a disagreement, because I don't necessarily think that Brian Daboll, Mike Kafka, and Shane Bowen are getting the best out of the players outside of Brian Burns. But I do expect the players to play better than they are playing right now. That's just how I view it. And on paper, this looked to be, I guess, from what you were hearing from a lot of the pundits across the nation, that this should have been a top 5 defense. But I think they were focusing more on the defensive line and also not focusing on the depth that we don't have on this team. And when you have guys going down with injuries like that, and you don't have a next man up who can come in and supplement for those players, at least at a decent level, then I have to sit up here and say that the personnel from the New York Giants is just not good enough. And I think when we get a new defensive coordinator in here or a new head coach, whatever it may be, I think the results are not going to be that much better. I really do. I think that the New York Giants need to go out there and they need to address all the positions that they think they have checked the boxes in. I really think so. Shout out my dog, Chris Peace, in the building one time. He was at the Commanders game last night. He said, cut Slayton and give Wandale Slayton's money, with a bunch of laughing emojis. It's fucking crazy. And I had people laughing at me the other day when I said there's no way in fucking hell I'm paying Wandale Robinson $10 to $15 million. Chris, you know who those guys are. You know the culprits, right? Tree said, exactly. Put the guys you got in better position. Our offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator don't adjust to game, even the way they use running backs. I'm not sure what he's saying there. Get hot, keep going. If one gets hot, that's what he's saying. If one gets hot, keep going. No, they don't do that. Yeah, I listen, I don't think that the Giants coaching staff is putting them in the best position for these guys to succeed, but I think they are putting them in position to make plays, and they're just not making plays, man. Like, what else can we do for Dexter Lawrence to be better right now? I don't know. Tyler Nubin, I don't know what else we can do to get him to play better. He's playing soft. I know a lot of people have labeled the New York Giants defense as soft over the last couple of weeks. I don't see that from every player, but specifically, I see that from Tyler Nubin. You're a safety. You're supposed to go in there, and when you are the last line of defense, you need to go in there full speed and be willing to put your body on the line and make plays, and he does not do that. Deonte Banks has been looking like absolute dog water. If you look at the play where CMC trucked Deonte Banks, not CMC, it was Brian Robinson. When Brian Robinson trucked Deonte Banks looked like he was going to get stood up and possibly be able to at least kind of hold up Brian Robinson until, the rest of his defenders were to be able to get over there to the ball carrier. Instead, Tyler Nubin is behind him. And everybody, if you've ever played safety or ever played cornerback, you know that when you're barreling down on a running play, it's all about outside contain. It's all about getting, in this position, it would have been his right shoulder. It's all about getting your body outside of the ball carrier. And I see Tyler Nubin getting pushed to the inside, and in return, he ends up locking up with the guy that's blocking him, which ultimately pushes Deonte Banks in the back. And when Deonte Banks is getting trucked and stood up, now he's got Tyler Nubin and another, I believe it was George Kittle, behind him, basically trampling him over. All of these guys are not playing great. We can exclude Brian Burns. I think Kayvon Thibodeau's played average level ball this year to the point where I do want him back in blue, and I think Kayvon Thibodeau can be a part of the future plans for the New York Giants. But that does not mean that we should not be drafting more edge rushers, more pass rushers, identifying free agents, identifying players that might be on the bench for another team. When I look at Tyler Nubin, the only thing that I can think of is that we got Jason Pinnock on the bench over there on the opposite sideline for the 49ers, and he is a much better player than Tyler Nubin is. And this is another one that's on Joe Schoen, where before a player is showing you that he's ready to take upon a leadership role or a starting role within your whatever, your offense or your defense, you jump the gun and release a player that is productive for the New York Giants, because Jason Pinnock was productive for the New York Giants at bare minimum. It reminds me eerily similarly of how they handled Jalen Hyatt, allowing the wide receiver position to be a position that they continuously neglect, thinking that a guy like Jalen Hyatt is going to take that step. And that is another big reason why they were forced to bring back Darius Slayton, because Jalen Hyatt in 2024 was unable to take that next step. And in return, now you got to sign guys and bring back old-ass players that you truly do not want, on your team or on your roster moving forward. Big shout out to Noah Void in the building one time with the $10 super chat. Noah Void said, been screaming for the Giants to address the inside linebacker position for years. Been exposed for years. Trusting Bobby O, who is ass, is criminal. What's the point of having a defensive line without the cast behind him? And this is another position that Joe Schoen and countless general managers around the league and people that deal with personnel have tried to devalue. It is still one of the most important positions in all of football. If you don't have a linebacker, you don't have a second line of defense. And the New York Giants they've shown you how important the inside linebacker position is this year. And with the injuries that we have, like I stated, with Darius Muasau going down, with Micah McFadden already on IR, now it's Flanagan Fowles playing inside linebacker. Come on, man. We got to find a way to get better here. And it starts in the offseason, and Joe Schoen has not done a great job of that. And y'all know, in the offseason, I was trying to give Joe Schoen a pass, a general manager who's learning on the job, trying to correct those mistakes. And I can't sit up here and tell you that the signings of Javon Holland and Paulson Adebo were bad signings, but it's not panning out. But at the end of the day, when you look at the linebacker position, just failure to upgrade that position. And we're reaping what Joe Schoen did not sow. And it's unfortunate for us as fans. Big shout out to Noel Void for helping us raise the bar over here on Awthentik and the Beard. Tough stream today, man. I'm a bit unfazed by the New York Giants. There's a portion of me that remains unfazed. But when you compile all these deficiencies that this team has, it's hard to not get down and just, think about the future and just think that really there is no future right now, even though we do have the QB1 box checked off right now. David says we don't have depth because Shane can't draft. And we're going to get there in some of these Giant overreactions. That's a fact. We'll take a couple of more, and then we'll keep it pushing. Trees says, I want Kayvon. At first I thought this was Kadarius Toney, because I actually heard a Giants fan say that they're so desperate right now that they would bring back Kadarius Toney. And that's not necessarily a plan that I would do, but I understand where they are at with it, because the Giants have no fucking talent at wide receiver right now. It's pathetic. But Trees says, I want Kayvon Thibodeau for at least the next 2 years. I refuse to overjudge the players till I see different defensive coordinators. Sorry, Bobby O has a lot. Tackle our other linebacker are a lot worse than Bobby O. Okay, I see what you're saying there. Kind of some typos there, but he's basically saying, like, Bobby O, is not the greatest at his position, but you look at the other guys behind him and they're absolutely terrible. And I do agree with you on this one, Trees. Like, Bobby O's not ass in my opinion. And I know the last Super Chat said that. I think that was either Noel or the one before that. But I think Bobby O, if he had a better player next to him, he would be a serviceable linebacker, inside linebacker in this league. Greg says the Giants were built on great inside linebacker play. That's facts, man. Antonio Pierce comes to mind. So many others, man. And it's unfortunate. We even had some good linebacker play with Patrick Graham when he was here with Blake Martinez for a year there as well. And then the MetLife turf ended up taking him out. But we've always had really good inside, just really good linebackers in general, especially during the days when we ran a 4-3. That's for sure. Let me see what Greg's saying here, too. He said, LT only came to came to be because we had a Hall of Fame Harry Carson at inside linebacker. That's facts. That's facts, man. That's definitely facts. And my legacy jersey is a Harry Carson jersey, not to be confused with a Bobby Okereke jersey or nothing like that. Let's see what else we got. Or a Darius Muasau jersey, more importantly. David says Shane gets rid of his talent to draft for the position. He gets rid of running back to draft a running back. He lets a safety go to pay one. We are not good because we don't have depth. We don't have depth because we don't draft well. Bars right there, bro. Bars. Deaton Shelton said 3 years of deja vu is insane. That's facts. That's facts right there. Quota said, right, we judging players when we couldn't scheme on the best wide receivers open in Neighbors, or one of the best wide receivers open in Neighbors. Based on that game, y'all would think Neighbors would be a bust. Just think about that. It's true. It's definitely true. Simeon says, I want a couple of wild animals at the linebacker position in the draft. Yeah, that the two positions I think I'm going to be looking at most is going to be inside linebacker, off ball, and wide receiver. And then also we still have to address cornerback as well. DeIlla says, I don't know if you'll ever see another safety come out in the draft with size like Sean Taylor had. Every position on defense has become smaller. Linebackers now are Sean Taylor size. Man, rest in peace to Sean Taylor. The dude was, in my opinion, one of the greatest safeties to ever play this game. He did not know how to play three-quarter speed. Everything he did was full throttle. And when speaking about guys like Tyler Nubin, who are, just so fearful to just put a hat on a player when they know it's going right at you, running back barreling right down the pipe, and you will not get your hat in there. I promise you guys. Matter of fact, I'm going to make a compilation for you to make it easier. I will chop up a bunch of Tyler Nubin plays that will be an example of what I'm talking about as far as stopping the run. I'll make sure to do that. I'm working on some Dexter Lawrence stuff as well. There's going to be a lot of compilations this week. I promise y'all on that. But Sean Taylor just, he really embodied what it's like to go out there and put your life on the line as a football player. And, I always say that the players on the field are the soldiers that represent the Army. The Giants are the Army, and the players are the soldiers, right? A lot of people don't like when I make that comparison of football to war. And when you look at Tyler Nubin, I understand that. But when you look at a safety that knows how to play the position, like some of the greats that we're talking about right now, I think you would absolutely understand why some people do compare the NFL to war a little bit. I know lives are not on the line as far as, living and dying, but they're definitely putting their bodies on the line and their livelihood on the line for sure. Oof, I see Simeon talking about Pepper Johnson, man, talking about some of the great OGs, man. Talking about some of the great OGs. JDJ's in the building. What's going on, fam? He said, way late, but I'm here. Anyone fired yet? Nope. And it doesn't look like anybody's going to get fired. Brian Dable was asked about Shane Bowen still being his defensive coordinator, and he said, yes, Shane Bowen is going to be our defensive coordinator. So we'll see. Greg said Sean Taylor was a monster whose career was cut way too short. Yeah, man, that was tragic. Absolutely tragic, man. Off some stupid kids breaking into the crib, trying to rob Sean Taylor, and, Sean Taylor going out there, putting his life on the line, defending his family, and ultimately it ended up costing him his life. Tough, man. Super tough, man. He was such a great player. Quota said, I wanted to ask you, Awthentik, what do you think about our run game? I remember hearing Tiki's take a few weeks ago saying our run game is bland and predictable, and all we run is pretty much duos. Our run game is trash, man. Like, it's just not good. And some of that is on the personnel, and I think people, overinflated and overhyped a guy like Tyrone Tracy last season. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in the overreactions. But, also from a scheme perspective, the Giants just are running the ball in a very similar fashion, and they don't get creative running the ball. There's not a lot of misdirection pre-snap on these running plays, but also there's just not a lot of threats on this offense. So I do feel like Kafka and Brian Dable are pretty much handcuffed into running a very vanilla style of offense, but that's no excuses. You got to find a way to at least commit to the run. And in this game, just 13 attempts to the running backs, you got to put that on the coaches, man. You got to put that on the coaches. Lou Mateo said, shit, even Kawika Mitchell was balling. I can't wait for the Giants content creators, or I can't wait for Giants content creators to get to talk winning football instead of dissecting what is wrong with this team. And man, I'm right there with you, Lou. It's tough, and, we're ushering in this whole new era of Giants football with Cam Scatterboo, Jaxson Dart, Abdul Carter, and just not being able to get on the right track. It is tough, but I can't speak for you guys. And, I can't tell y'all how to fan, but for me, I am being a little bit patient here. And that sounds crazy coming from somebody like me. Tree says that Bobby O isn't actually that bad. He's on pace for about his average numbers tackle-wise. The defense just started looking decent, and we got injured and got no depth. That's true, because y'all know I was like the front runner of the defense looking a lot better, before these last 3 games where they've allowed over 33 points in every one of these contests. But, yeah, it's what have you done for me lately, and the results just are not there right now. Eric James Johnson says, let me ask you something. If we wind up with the number 1 pick, would you keep it or trade it? I think I would trade it back, especially if there are some QB needy teams. I'm not sure what quarterbacks are going to be coming out this year and, how highly touted they'll be. But I did get a chance to see Fernando Mendoza, the Indiana quarterback, in person this past Saturday, shooting a Maryland game. And, he kind of looks the part. I think he's more of a true pocket passer. He actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Daniel Jones, just the way he plays the game a little bit with less of the running abilities. And, I'm not saying like between the ears is the same, because Fernando Mendoza definitely seems like, between the ears, he's a great decision maker. And although he did throw an interception on his first drive, I believe, in that game against Maryland, he really bounced back. Younger brother came in the game, and he was balling out too, but we'll see how the quarterbacks finish out the season. And if there is a team that needs a quarterback, I would absolutely be willing to trade back, because we don't have a lot of picks this year. I believe we're missing a 3rd-round pick as well, so it'd be nice to kind of get some more draft capital. But at the end of the day, if it's going to be Shane Bowen or, Joe Shane making the picks, it almost doesn't matter, really what picks we have in the draft if it's going to be Shane Bowen, who's been a poor evaluator of talent thus far. So we'll see. DeIllis says, I was at the game when the Redskins retired Sean Taylor's number week after Plaxico shot himself. We beat the brakes off them that day. I kind of felt bad considering what the Landover faithful were celebrating. Damn. I got to go back and maybe look at the let me see. He said you was at the game when they retired his jersey. Yeah, so it had to be over here at FedEx Field. I'm sure I have footage from that game. I'm gonna go back and look at that, because I've been to basically every one of those games. This was the first year I hadn't gone to the game in like 15 years or something like that. So I'm gonna go back and look to see if I have any tape from that. I do remember when they had the Sean Taylor like mannequin thing. People were so pissed off about that, because it did look a bit cheap when they put that in the stadium. Let's see. No Met says we have to draft a running back 1. Man, it's crazy. It's crazy seeing this today, No Mets. Like, we had a running back 1. And I know a lot of people didn't want to pay Saquon, but like that kind of money for a running back of that caliber is not a lot of money. I don't know why we made it such a big deal. Damn. And to draft a running back 1 is so rare that you get those guys outside of day 1. So that means that eventually, if, you want it your way, No Mets, it's going to have to be a running back in the 1st round. Maybe 2nd round. Maybe you can get a guy in the 2nd round, but like, that's a crapshoot, just how it is for quarterbacks in the 1st round. JDJ says, shoot, I'd take good old pre-ACL injury Stevie Johnson at this point. That man made plays. Yeah, that dude did make plays for sure. I see some more talk about Pepper Johnson. We're going to get to the Giant overreactions here in a couple seconds. I just kind of want to catch up to the chat. Let's see. Eric James Johnson said, if Dable, I like it, Diabol, I like that. It's kind of like if diabolical. If Dable don't win 7 games, he and the GM is gone. I mean, I don't even know if 7 games saves them. I'm not sure how this is going to pan out. I'm kind of puzzled. I'll keep it real with y'all. Like, I do think that there's a good chance that everybody's back next year in the last year of their contracts, and then John Mara decides to fire them after the fact. I think that John Mara dealing with cancer at this point in time is definitely tough, and it's to make those kind of decisions while you're actively going to chemotherapy and trying to battle something that's trying to take your life is going to be difficult. And, the only thing that is making me think that it would be, outside of the results, that it would be a good situation to move on for them after the year is that you're going to waste a Jaxson Dart year if you allow them to stay here for another year. So then when the next regime comes in, you're talking about Jaxson Dart already going to be 2 years into his rookie contract, which shrinks that window to build around that rookie quarterback. But, I mean, it can pan out multiple different ways. Like Jalen Hurts got to a Super Bowl on his rookie contract, but he didn't win the Super Bowl on his rookie contract. So, if you can build a team around that quarterback and ultimately you have to pay him, then you have to pay him. And I don't think it should stop us moving forward from trying to go out there and, compete for a championship. But 7 games, I mean, we're at 2 right now. And you have, 8 games left? So you got to win 5 of your last 8. That's going to be extremely tough. It's going to be extremely tough. The Illa says, Jabril was a beast, one of my favorite safeties to ever play for this team, had range and could hit. He absolutely, and he was an undersized kind of guy, but he was not scared to go in there and get dirty and make plays, man. And that's the thing that and I say we, like all of us as evaluators, overlooked with Tyler Nubin. I think that we all viewed his turnover and his takeaway rate as the main thing, right? But we didn't look at how he stopped the run or how good of a tackler he was. We knew speed was a deficiency, but I think that we truly overlooked that because I was kind of high on Tyler Nubin coming into the draft, but he wasn't a guy that was like necessarily on my radar, like I want to draft him. But when we drafted him, to see that Nick Saban had him rated as the number 1 safety, it made me feel really good about it. The guy that I was looking at was Cameron Kinchens, coming out of Miami. And he's absolutely played much better than Tyler Nubin thus far. Kevin, the PRF, said that no Mets, no Nets, no Jets is ready to go full circle. Yeah, man. And I'm not mad at it. Breezo Page said, y'all don't think Scadaboo is a running back 1? And no Mets, no Nets, no Jets said no, especially coming off an injury. There's not enough data to label Cam Scadaboo a running back 1 yet. He has not even had a 100-yard game. Tyrone Tracy had 3 of those at least last year, and I still didn't think it was, enough sample size for us to label Tyrone Tracy as a high-level running back 1 in the NFL. I thought that Tyrone Tracy was right around like that 15 to 20 mark as far as the running backs go in the NFL, but that was just for a single season. And as teams get tape, you're starting to see the kind of caliber that of a running back that Tyrone Tracy is. I like this idea right here. Blaze the Kid said we should go out and get Brian Robinson from San Francisco. I don't know if they would allow him, to walk or to be traded because they had Derek Mason there last year and they allowed him to go to the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know if they're going to allow Brian Robinson to go because he is a really good backup running back in this league. The Washington Commanders could actually use him this year, to be honest. Tree says, I don't know why we let Saquon walk. That was dumb. This should be a build team Dart stepping into, not a complete mess. Yeah, I mean, you think about that, right? And, during the lead up to, I'd say, Daniel Jones being released and the beginnings of the 2024 season, I thought that it would have been a good idea to keep Saquon around and get a rookie quarterback in because Saquon would be that security blanket. You have a capable running back right behind you that would command stacked boxes and all that stuff. But just think about what Malik Neighbors would be doing with a caliber of a running back like a Saquon Barkley. And then you pile that or compound that with Jaxson Dart and his ability to use his legs. This offense would have had 3 viable playmakers, and I like Cam Scadaboo. I think he's a good running back, and he could have been a good running back to pair with the Saquon Barkley, and we could have had Cam Scadaboo doing the things that he does best, which is running straight forward, goal line situations, short down and distance situations as well. But that's me in hindsight. In real time, I wanted to pair Saquon Barkley with another running back for sure, but it morphed and it changed a lot. At one point, I was looking at Deonta Foreman, who was formerly with the Carolina Panthers and played with a bunch of different teams. But I liked him. I thought he was a good bruiser back. But in the end of Saquon's career with the New York Giants, I wanted to pair him with a more of a speedster running back. And I thought the same with Tyrone Tracy. I wanted to go out there and get Brashard Smith in this draft, but we went with Cam Scatterboo. And I think, the writings are on the wall that Tyrone Tracy's not a running back one, and the verdict is not quite out yet on Cam Scatterboo, but I wouldn't label him a quarterback one right now. Greg Turdhaller talking about dogs at the linebacker position: Sam Huff, Harry Carson, Gary Reasons, Pepper Johnson, Antonio Pierce, even threw Chase Blackburn in the mix, Brian Kelly, were all monsters at the inside linebacker position. I like that. Noel Voigt talking about Antrell Roll, absolutely. And Roll was a hitter. We know that. We need those type of players back, man. We need those type of guys, and I cannot wait to put together this compilation of Tyler Nubin for you guys to check out. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And for those of y'all that have not seen the compilation of all of Jaxson darts, throws, and runs, if you want to check that out and you didn't get a shot to look at the game, or you just want to go back and just see it again, that's up on the channel already as well. Let's get a couple more, and then we'll keep it pushing to the giant overreactions here. We are at the hour 30-minute mark here. I see somebody talking about Felipe Sparks, who is Jordan Sparks' father, actually, the singer. Breezo Page said Scatterboo had 7 touchdowns in like 5 weeks, bro. We have a running back one. I just think we need a running back 1B like the Lions. Yeah, the 7 touchdowns was cool, but when you talk about a running back one, it's not just all about touchdowns and capitalizing on plays where you're down there by the goal line. It's about consistency, and it's about being able to have the durability to be able to take those amount of carries in a game, 20 plus, consistently. I think that Scatterboo right now is a good running back by committee. He's a good leader of a running back by committee situation, but I don't think he's a running back one right now. Like I said, would we look around the league and label any other running back in the league right now a running back one that has not had a 100-yard game? I don't think we could do that. Tree said Scat was good enough with Dart. In my opinion, running back isn't our issues. Depth and no weapons are. Yeah, but I think the weapons kind of calls towards the running back. Like, you want a weapon at the running back position. I agree with you totally. We need weapons on the outside. Y'all know we've been preaching that over here on this channel since 2 years ago. We were like, even when we drafted Malik Neighbors, I was like, we need more weapons. Y'all know that, right? We lost Saquon. We lost Waller. Now we supplement that with one more weapon, but you lost 2 of them. So Giants absolutely need weapons. And if they had more weapons, then I do absolutely agree with Trees here that running back wouldn't be a big issue if you had more weapons out there. But unfortunately for this team, that's not the case. Eric said, how about Jason Sehorn? He had a nice little career as well. Knee injury kind of got in the way, returning punts and whatnot. But I was a big fan of Sehorn, man. He was locking dudes down. And he was representing for them Caucasian cornerbacks, man. You got to give him his props. Absolutely. DeIlla said, yeah, I really think people are underestimating how this could play out due to what John Mara is going through. Finding a coach / general manager is probably one of the last things on his mind. Kind of can't blame him. Spot on, bro. Lou said, chill, Walter White had cancer, was making moves as the meth king, LOL. Sorry, I'm just kidding, LOL. Get well, Mara. Please beat cancer. Yeah, I'm right there with you on that, too. Holmes with Jay says Scat is definitely a running back one. I think that's more projection than actual facts right now. Because like I said, man, I can't label somebody a running back one that has not had a single 100-yard game. And Holmes says he had a 99-yard game. It was a 98-yard game. But yeah, even if I was sitting up here telling you that he had just one 100-yard game, I still cannot look at how many games did Cam Scatterboo actually play for the New York Giants? Maybe 6 where he was truly involved, 5 or 6 games. That's not enough sample size for me. And what I would encourage New York Giants fans who feel this way, that he's a running back one already, just go back to your takes that you had on Tyrone Tracy last year about him being a running back one, and then look at his productivity or his lack of productivity this year, where he has literally gone 14 straight games without breaching 60 yards, and tell me if he's a running back one. So all I'm saying is that right now, at least for me, I don't have a large enough sample size on Cam Scatterboo to label him a running back one. We've had running backs come in and average more yards per carry than both Cam Scatterboo and Tyrone Tracy that were absolutely not running back ones. Paul Perkins is one of them. And you go back and look at his rookie season, and it'll give you all the data that you need to know that there's no way that we can say that Cam Scatterboo's a running back one right now. I do think that he was trending towards that as well, though. Mac the Giants fan says that Nubin is regressing. He was definitely more reliable a season ago against the run. yeah, I don't know if it's taking a toll on him just getting these hits, or that dude is playing safety like how I would play safety if you threw me out there right now. I would not be trying to make tackles. There's no fucking way. You know, I'm 6 foot right now, buck 65. If I were to get hit by an NFL player, I would absolutely fold up. And that is why, you know, I look at a guy like Tyler Nubin and I'm like, you look like how I would look out there. You playing very fearful. You looking out for yourself rather than looking out for your team. Tree says Scatterbo was just coming into his own. I do agree with this. I feel like a 100-yard game was right around the corner for sure. Okay, I see a funny comment from No Mets, No Nets, No Jets. I'm not going to bring no attention to that one, but it is pretty funny. JDJ says, nah, Scat is a running back 1.5. Ooh, 1.5? That would be even better than a running back 1. So maybe you're saying a 0.5, but let's see. He says he's a nice power back that would pair well with a smaller, quicker back. I think his violent run style could be hard to rely on for 17 games. So I think JD's saying that he's more of a 0.5 running back, not necessarily a running back 1 and some more. You know, I'm just going off the technicalities here, but I like the statement. I do. Let's see. I see some more talk about Scat here. DeIlla says, not with McCaffrey's injury, they aren't letting Robinson go. Yeah, and that's another good point. He said Christian could go down next week or not even make it through practice this week. He's basically a ticking time bomb. Yeah, and McCaffrey's been on fire this year. And I think that, you know, if the 49ers play this smart and want to make a true playoff run, they'll balance out the carries between Brian Robinson and CMC a little bit more moving forward. Tree says Saquon would have made this offense great. Scatterbo is running back 2. Yeah, it would have been. You know, I doubt that they would have drafted Scatterbo if they kept Saquon around. But in a world where, you know, you can fantasize about things going a certain way in hindsight, that would have been amazing. Breezo Pate said facts. Cam and Saquon would have been nasty. I'd be thinking and imagining imagine the Eagles drafted him. Oh, like if the Eagles went out there and drafted Scatterbo. Holy shit, that would have been, yeah, worst nightmare as a Giants fan for sure. Eternal 2583 said Saquon would have saved Daniel Jones' job last year. I don't know about that. You know, I see where you're coming from with this, but Daniel Jones, even in 2023, when Saquon was here, he was playing so bad. Like, I think 2024, even with Saquon, it would have been pretty bad. You know, I don't know if it would have saved his job or not. They seemed like they were ready to move on. But the play was much poorer. And if Saquon was there, the play probably wouldn't have been as poor as we saw it was in 2024. So I respect the opinion there. DeIlla talking about Kyle Monungai in the 7th round, another good running back. And, you know, that was my approach. I didn't want to go running back in 4th round this year. I wanted to go running back on day 3. And it was Brashard Smith. That's who I thought it was. You know, the running back that I would have drafted on day 2 would have been R.J. Harvey. And I've had R.J. Harvey on my fantasy football bench for the last 2 weeks, and he's absolutely just lit it the fuck up. He seems to be really coming into his own now as well. Let's see what else we got. Shout out to all you guys active in the chat, too. I see a lot of y'all that are just super active in the chat, man. Like Greg, No Mets, Trees, all you guys are having some great conversations. Holmes is also out here representing as well, too. Holmes said, bro, Scat has been valuable in protection, pass catching, bruising, and running, and touchdown scores. Not sure what's missing. It's not that anything's missing, you know. It's just that in my personal opinion, I just don't think that you can look at a short sample size like what we saw here from Cam Scatterbo and say moving forward he's a running back 1. He's going to be coming off of a ankle injury that is a devastating injury. And we saw Saquon, one of the best running backs that the game has ever seen, come back off of an injury. Granted, it was an ACL, and he was a shell of his fucking self. So I'm not convincing you, Holmes. I mean, have your own opinion. I got you on it, right? But at the end of the day, I just can't look at a rookie season where a guy played 6-7 games maximum and say that guy's going to be a running back 1 moving forward, and we don't have to address the position at all. It's just where I stand on it, you know? And I welcome all opinions, and it's great to agree to disagree. I don't encourage the family in the chat to always agree with my opinions. They know that for a fact, right? Like, I'm somebody that, like, I welcome people pushing back on my opinions. I love that stuff. It makes for great conversations where people can learn. And, you know, I think I've done a pretty good enough job explaining why I think Cam Scatterbu is not a running back one in this league. And you talked about pass protection. Yeah, he's had moments for sure, but he's also been a fucking liability in pass protection as well. When you look at the interception that Jaxson Dart threw, where he threw it right to that linebacker against the Denver Broncos, that would not have happened if Cam Scatterbu was better in protection. But he ended up getting blown up in the hole. It's just one instance, right? I do understand that. But at the end of the day, you know, everybody can have their opinion on it. I said the same thing last year. I said, yeah, Tyrone Tracy's our running back one, but I don't know if he's a running back one moving forward. He finished the season with 7 straight games where he did not breach 60 yards. And then, you know, started off this year, 7 straight games where he didn't breach 60 yards again. And I think the verdict is out on him. And I'm just somebody that just likes to have a lot of proof before I, you know, solidify somebody, you know, a certain thing. I've had my fair share of mistakes with that as well. After the Minnesota Vikings playoff win with Daniel Jones, I came up here and I said that Daniel Jones is settling in as the New York Giants leader, and I think that he is our franchise quarterback moving forward. 1 week later, I came up here and said I jumped the fucking gun after we got blown out against the Philadelphia Eagles in the divisional. So, you know, I like to have that data to have a confident opinion. And right now, I don't think I have that data. Frank Chaz 9 says, who needs weapons when we have Slayton and Johnson? I know, right? Man, I can smell the sarcasm a mile away with that one. Nicki Minaj 7022 says, what does the beard think about the Jaden Daniels injury? I could tell you through text what he said. And yeah, it was tough, man. You know, because we all thought in real time it was a leg injury. Like and thank God it wasn't. I really thought his knee turned or something like that when we saw it live and the way he laid on the ground. But the beard basically said, yeah, I thought it was a leg for sure. They're saying it's the left arm, which is a lot better than the knee or a right arm. It sucks, and I hate to see it, but those are the silver linings. He said, I'm sick to my stomach. Damn, man. And it's crazy because we were talking about other injuries as it happened. We were talking about Trey Amos being injured and a couple other players. I just sent him a picture of Jaden Daniels coming out the tunnel and wearing the old school Washington Commanders uniforms. And I was like, man, this picture right here, cold as shit. And, you know, I even said before that Jaden Daniels looks healthy, and the beard said, yeah, no knee brace either. He's moving fast. It all went to shit for them. So that's kind of a bit of a synopsis on how he feels. David said, giving Shane another draft is organizational mismanagement. If they don't get rid of Shane, they are not getting rid of Dable. Dable at least wanted Dart, I guess is what he's saying there. It's not in my hands, man, but it's going to be tough going into another year. Bookend Tackle says, I prefer a running back like Scat because he always gets positive yards. Yak losing yards on a run kills drives. Now, here's the difference, though. Saquon Barkley was going up against a lot of stack boxes, and I've done a lot of due diligence on Cam Scatterbu this year against stack boxes and not against stack boxes. When you're going up against about 6, Cam Scatterbu's an automatic bucket. He's going to get yards, absolutely. But Saquon didn't have that luxury of going up against 6-man fronts a lot. Most of the time, Saquon was going up against stack boxes. But Cam also loses yardage on some runs here and there as well. It's definitely not as egregious as what we saw from Saquon trying to play hero ball a lot of the time. But I understand where you're coming from on this one, Bookend. But I do, and this is just a preference thing, right? Like you like the stay positive type of yardage kind of running backs that really don't break the big runs. Like Cam Scatterbu's rarely going to get you an explosive run for, let's say, like how Saquon did against the Rams in 2024, where he had 2 runs over 70 yards in that game. You're not going to see that from Cam. Me, personally, I do prefer the home run hitter. And you want to have a complementary running back, in my opinion, that complements whatever you have at running back 1. So if you have Cam Scatterbu at running back 1 and he's a bruiser, I think the complementary running back should be a bit of a third down, a playmaker, home run hitter type of guy, and vice versa. If you have a Saquon Barkley as your lead running back, then you could bring in a powerful, bruiser type of running back to pair with him as well. And this is a good point from Deilla right here, supporting that he might not be a running back 1 currently. Deilla said, what was Scat's second best game? It took him 25 carries to put up 79 yards. He says that's that's borderline platter running back. Not talking trash, is just the truth. That's why I love this chat, man. And De'Illa puts out really good content. He really takes his time. Where's Turbo? I don't know. I'm not sure. But you know, I do think that, I mean, they did seem to kind of like prefer Devin Singletary, but you could elevate Turbo and bring up another running back and use him in the passing game as well. And Tree says Turbo can't block. That's his problem. And yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind right there. If you can't pass pro, you're a liability when you're out there on the field. I see a couple other ones here. Nomad says that Giants fans are so used to seeing bad players, some of us forgot what a superstar / real weapon looks like. That's true. And honestly, I don't want to be too early, but like when you look at Cam Scatterboo, I look at him as a good player right now. I don't quite look at him as a weapon. Like I do think that he brings great energy to this offense. He brings production to this offense, but is Cam Scatterboo a superstar? I wouldn't go there just yet, right? Mac the Giants fan said, I love Scatterboo, but we need to see more before he's a surefire running back one. Yeah, that's where I'm at with it. Kevin the PRF said, if I pluck the running back one from like 20 teams and drop them on the Giants, they start over Scatterboo. Man, that would make for an awesome exercise. We're already over the 1 hour, 45 minute over under. And if we weren't, I would have just went through the teams. But I mean, man, I'm so tempted to do this right now. Let's do it. Let's do it, y'all. Why not? We'll do this. Then we'll get off into the Giant overreactions. And then we'll call it a day. So let's just kind of take a little gander at the NFL standings and think about the running backs. Okay, so let's start off in the AFC East. New England Patriots right now are definitely in running back struggle mode. They did draft Travion Henderson, and Ramondre Stevenson is dealing with an injury. So let's not put that team there. The Bills with Cook, I'm taking Cook. The Dolphins with A-Chain, I'm taking A-Chain. The Jets, I mean, they got a pretty decent stable. I'll leave them off. That's two teams. The Steelers, Jaylen Warren, are we taking Jaylen Warren over Cam Scatterboo? I'm not going to quite do that. Ravens with Derrick Henry, I'll say yes. Bengals with Chase Brown. So we got three so far. Bengals with Chase Brown, we'll leave that. The Browns with Quinshawn, I'm taking the Browns. Quinshawn Judkins all day. The Colts, Jonathan Taylor, that's 5. The Jaguars with ATN. Let me go to the live chat. We got 5 right now when we get to the Jaguars. Let me go to the live chat because I want to know what y'all think about ATN. Gregory said, Awthentik, I respect your opinion on a running back one, but I don't necessarily believe everything is determined on stats. I believe it has a lot to do with who your team uses the most. Take Williams of the Cowboys. Yeah, I mean, you got to factor in that stuff. I'm not sitting up here telling you, Gregory, that this is all based upon stats. I mean, I'm also using my eyes out there too. Like Cam Scatterboo is not a home run hitting running back, and that right there kind of just devalues him a little bit, in my opinion. But he's a solid running back. I think he's a starting level running back in this league. But when I say running back one, I think of dudes who are like, we can give that guy the ball 25 times a game. That's what I think about with running back ones. Breezo Pate said, Quinshawn scratching my head. Have you been watching the Browns games? You ain't been watching the Browns games. Nobody would say that statement if they were watching Browns games. I'm taking Quinshawn Judkins right now. Oh, he literally was their offense for a couple of games there. ATN is kind of iffy. He's inconsistent. So we won't give ATN. So we're going with 5. The Houston Texans, if you go with when they're healthy, the Houston Texans are a tough one. The Texans are a tough one. The Titans with Tony Pollard, I won't put them in there. We got 5 so far. The Broncos with J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey, I'm going to put the Broncos as 6. The Chargers with Amarion Hampton, I'm going to go ahead and say that's 7. The Chiefs with Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco in them, I'm not going with them. So we'll go 7. Raiders is Ashton Genty. That's 8 right there. That's 8 running backs that we're taking over him. We're done with the AFC. So 8 out of the AFC. Eagles with Saquon, absolutely, that's 9. The Cowboys with Javonte Williams is an interesting one because Javonte Williams is playing really fucking good, but I won't give them that. The Commanders with Jacory and them, I won't give them that either. Green Bay Packers with Josh Jacobs. That's 10 right there. The Lions, that's 11. The Bears with DeAndre Swift, I'm tempted to say that that's 12. The Vikings with Aaron Jones, age is an issue there. Aaron Jones is probably a better running back right now, and Jordan Mason, but they're a little bit up there in age. So I'm going to stay right there. I think we're at 12. The Bucs with Bucky Irving would be 13. Damn, man, the Panthers with Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard, I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm not going to do that. The Falcons with Bijan, that's 14. The Saints with Alvin Kamara, that's 15. The Seahawks with Kenneth Walker, that's 16 for me. The Rams with Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, that's 17 for me. The 49ers with CMC, that's 18 for me right there. The Cardinals with what's my dog that's on injury reserve right now? I got his face right there. I can't think of his name. We'll leave the Cardinals off. So about half the league. There you go. Kevy says Kamara is cooked. I wouldn't go there, but he's getting older. James Conner, thank you, Breezo Paid. I appreciate you, but I won't put James Conner over him right now. And if y'all want, I'll remove who's the other one that homie was complaining about? Alvin Kamara. Kevy was saying Kamara's cooked. If y'all want to take Kamara off, it's still half the league, you know. So half the league, you're talking about running backs that we would take over Cam Scatterboo. The Illa said, no. Jacobs isn't hitting home runs currently, but are you telling me that Cam Scatterboo's a better running back than Josh Jacobs? Just let me just be as clear and direct as I could be. You let me know. And we'll get off into these giant overreactions. Kamara over. I don't know if you're talking about over. He would take him over, or his career's over. We'll leave Kamara off. I wanted to have like the clear cut type of running backs that, you know, we could put over him. So that's about at least 16 guys, right? Let me see. And then DeIlla said that currently, yes. Holy shit. Damn, man. That's why I say all the time, y'all, I'm not a prisoner of the moment. Like, you can't tell me that Cam Scatterboo is a better running back than Alvin Kamara. There's no way. And Alvin Kamara has never even rushed for 1,000 yards, but there's no fucking way. Like, in one game, you mean tell me in one game I'm going to take Cam Scatterboo over Alvin Kamara? I wouldn't do that right now. That's just me, but it's all preference. Kevin the PRF said Jacobs all day. Yeah, it'd be crazy to take Alvin Kamara over Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is one of the best running backs in the league. Arturo said that the running game looked so bad live versus the Niners. Yeah, it looked bad on TV too, but I can only imagine in person. Like, probably look like they're just running into the line, getting nothing. But Devin Singletary looked, he was okay. I thought Devin Singletary was pretty decent. Trees said the Scat is good enough, but you need a committee of running back if Scat is your running back one. Goddamn, Trees. Yo, this is the best way to just summarize everything that we just talked about. That's it. Cam Scatterboo right now is not a running back that you can have on the field every down. That's right now. We'll see. He can always get better, right? Oh, and Genesis says he was at the game as well, too. Kevin the PRF said Awthentik using the 100-yard standard left off multiple backs with multiple 100-yard games. Well, I'm not using the 100-yard standard to define Cam Scatterboo, and I won't take too much time to over-explain that. I think y'all know where I was getting at. Let me see. Amari says you got to compare Scat to a more realistic running back. Saquon is a Hall of Fame bound MVP caliber running back. Well, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about, running back ones in the league, and Saquon just so happens to be the best one. So that's where we at with it. But I don't got to over-explain that topic. I think, we know where we're at with it. If people have different opinions on it, they got different opinions on it. The Tree says Saquon isn't a fair comparison. I guess. It's comparing him to his peers, right? But it's not a fair comparison. I got you. I love it. And Kevy says Cam Scatterboo 4.1 yards per carry, Josh Jacobs 3.8. So I guess that means that Cam Scatterboo's a better running back than Josh Jacobs. I got you. Let's make sure we there. Okay, let's get off. What do I got? 2 giant overreactions today? 2 of them. One of them is going to be a little bit long-winded because we got some details to go over. But the first one, let me see if I got this in the right order. Yeah, the first one comes off of a response to a Pat Leonard clip, and I think you guys are going to enjoy this. I want to show you the clip first, and then I'll show you the giant overreaction. But this was Brian Dable at the podium, and this was Pat Leonard asking him a question. It's a very short clip. Check this out.
Brian, are those tears of emotion, or is that just...
Whose?
Yours.
Is that what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you're saying.
You walked in here, it looked like there were tears coming out of your eyes.
No.
Is that just allergies?
No. No, it wasn't tears.
Yo, the crazy part about that is somebody in the background said, "Is that just allergies?" I just realized that, and I've heard the clip like 10 times. But Pat Leonard was basically asking Brian Dable, "Are those tears, emotional tears, basically?" And Brian Dable kind of like stuttering up there, kind of like, "Wait, what you talking about? Tears? Me? No, what? I didn't hear you. Can you repeat the question?" Now, on this clip, Giants Nation tweeted out the clip and said, Brian Dable is not crying. I saw a little bit of reflection in his eyes. I don't know if it's the lighting in the room or what. But nonetheless, I don't think that is important. But Pat Leonard quote tweeted it, and he put up the emoji with that kind of a face, right? And this homie right here, Big Facts, responded to it. And he said, "The way y'all bash Brian Dable and just let Joe Schoen get a pass is crazy." Now, for those of y'all that don't know how we play the overreaction game over here on this channel is, if you think that the statement on the screen is incorrect and it is an overreaction, I need you to put an O in the chat and explain why if you would like to. If you agree with the statement on the screen and, you want to take the under, you don't think it's an overreaction, so you're going to take the under, you can put a U in the chat to represent that you agree with this statement on the screen. So in this particular case, the way y'all bash Brian Dable and just let Joe Schoen get a pass is crazy. If you agree with it, put a U in the chat. If you think that maybe you need some more time, which I don't think on this one you would need that, you can put a P in the chat to represent that you are taking the push. Now, for me, I agree with this statement on the screen because right now, Brian Dable is getting most of the heat as far as who should be fired. Now, most people do agree that they just need to clean the whole fucking house, but it does seem like Joe Schoen is getting a bit of a more of a pass here. And my problem with it is that the New York Giants offense is looking much better in 2025, and that is after the Giants returned 10 of the 11 starters on offense from last season after averaging 16.1 points per game. But Brian Dable is not to be let off the hook after winning Coach of the Year and going 9-7-1 in 2022. Brian Dable has a record of 11-32 To think that we have only won 11 games in the last 3 seasons since we made that playoff push is absolutely pathetic. It's absolutely ridiculous. The Giants are right now currently on a 9-game road losing streak, and they have 1 win versus the NFC East in the last 2 seasons. Now, that's all terrible. And the only thing right now that is a bit of a saving grace, without an emphasis on saving, is that Brian Dable did vouch to draft Jaxson Dart, and he also vouched to start Jaxson Dart. But as I told y'all in the spring on the video that is pinned to the profile of this particular YouTube channel, rookie quarterbacks do not save jobs. We saw that with Drake May. We saw that with Caleb Williams. They do not save jobs. Wins is what saves jobs. Now, as far as Brian Dable crying, I'm not a reporter on the beat. But I also try to remember that these people are human beings, man. Like, if I walked in the room, and this is no shade to Pat Leonard. I think Pat Leonard, is just doing his job how he likes to do his job. Pat Leonard wants to turn the rocks over, and he wants to get the goods. So he's going to ask the questions that might lead to a little bit of controversy. That's his style of journalism, and I respect it. It's not my particular approach, but I respect all of the ways that people approach journalism. And Pat Leonard is more, kind of like a beneficiary of his circumstances in journalism. He didn't make the rules for journalism. It's just where we are at today in journalism. And I've had, plenty of conversations with Pat Leonard on his channel, on our channel, on Twitter a lot, DM, all of that. And Pat Leonard is a good dude. I know that for a fact, at least from my experiences with him, he is a good dude. But I think that at times the beat reporters forget that this is a human being up there on that podium. And I'm not sitting up here telling you to feel sorry for Brian Dable, but I just think that my perspective might be a little bit different. And I always, encourage people, or I won't even say I encourage people. I just tell people what it is for me. I respect all perspectives. This past Saturday, and I told this story on Bleacher Report last night. This past Saturday, as I was filming for the Maryland Terps, they were getting blown the fuck out, y'all. It was like 57-17 or something like that. And they were just straight up getting dog walked by Indiana, a team that was just much better than them. And I pulled up on these kids. My responsibility as well as filming the games, is also to get B-roll content. So I filmed the crowds as well. And I pulled up on this group of kids that had their chest all painted with the letters of the Maryland Terps, right? So, one had the T, one had the E, one had the R, one had the P, one had the S. And they were chanting in the crowd, "Fire Loxley." Now, I personally have a relationship with Mike Loxley, almost like he's a mentor to me, and I know for a fact that he is a great leader of men. I've seen it on display in practice. I've seen it on display in games. And I'm not comparing apples to apples situation here because Loxley, well, shit, maybe it is because Loxley's dealing with a lot of youth over there at Maryland. And Brian Dable and Joe Shane are dealing with a lot of youth over here, with the New York Giants. But the difference is that Joe Shane picked these players and Joe Shane decided to roll with these players in the lineup. And Joe Shane actually bragged about these players saying, oh, these guys are playing over 50% of the snaps and these are rookies. Look, this is great, signs towards the future, which really they aren't. You don't want young guys playing the majority of the snaps. But I say all of that to just, refocus back on the humanistic side of things. Like, I don't know all the decisions and the whys behind the decisions about Brian Dable. Is Brian Dable not getting the results? That's an absolute fact. But at the end of the day, I do agree with big facts here that Joe Shane is just getting a much longer leash and more of a pass when it comes to who needs to be fired with the New York Giants. I'm just checking my watch here because you just never fucking know when you're going to get some breaking news that be like, yo, the New York Giants fired, blah, blah, blah. But let's tap in with the chat. Let's see how y'all are feeling about it. I'll scroll back a couple. I meant to say this earlier, like, when we were talking about opinions and disagreeing on opinions, like I encourage that kind of stuff on this channel. Like I try to bring statements on these giant overreactions that will split the room. Y'all know that. That's always the objective of this channel because to have those better conversations, we need to be talking about the things that people are split on and getting the data from both sides of the argument. Let's see. The King says, Pat Leonard is funny. He really said, "Are you crying?" I thought it was fucking hilarious too. And then Brian Dable was kind of like, and I saw other moments in the presser where like he looked like he wanted to kind of do one of these, but instead he was like, "I don't want them to think I'm crying." And he was doing one of these. I'm just like, man, it was an embarrassing moment. I think for kind of all parties involved there, because for me, I wouldn't have asked. And like I said, I'm not on the beat, so I don't know the protocol with them. But even if I saw Brian Dable crying, my first question coming up to the podium would not have been, "Hey, Dable, are you crying?" Like, that this shit's going to be public. And I just thought it wasn't a good look. Jart says, was he actually crying, though? I didn't see the tears, so I don't know. Maybe he was. That's the thing. That's the thing. You never know. He could have been crying up there as well. Let's see. I just see you're tweaking from no Mets, no Nets, no Jets. Shout out my dog. He also said it's a big overreaction here. He disagrees with the statement on the screen. Tree said, yeah, I'm not sure how or if Scat will ever be Scat. You see that injury, the bone was out of the leg. I didn't see the bone being out the leg, but I definitely saw the ankle and the whole foot going in the wrong direction. So I don't know. Adrian says he's taking the under on this one. I'm right there with you, man. I do think that Shane's getting a bit of more of a pass here. Holmes with Jay says, you remember Joe and Brian at the Knicks game when Brian, I guess he's saying, won Coach of the Year? They are a package deal. It's possible. Very possible. Frank says he's taking the under on this one. The King says overreaction. Simeon said overreaction as well. If y'all includes me, that's absolutely not true. I take a shot at Shane every chance I get. So, yeah, obviously some of us are a little bit more balanced. But more importantly, in regards to this particular tweet, people on Twitter just seem to be a little bit more focused on Brian Dable and the results over Joe Shane. And people are still talking about the drafts, which we're going to get to here in a second as well. Miguel said it's an overreaction. No Met said it's a big overreaction. It's crazy how Joe is getting a pass. Yeah. Blaze the Kid said he's taking the under. Joe has been worse, in my opinion. And that's where I'm at with it. Joe has been worse. The offense is kind of holding up their side of the bargain. But the difference is that Brian Dable is not an offensive coordinator. He is a head coach. So we got to keep that in mind. Tree says the general manager is just as much to blame. Facts. Blaze said the roster is trash. Big Blue said he's taking the under. He sucks at drafting, speaking about Joe Shane. Tree said the general manager might even be a bigger problem than the coach, in my opinion. Listen, I will sit up here and say this confidently. I 100% think that the general manager is a bigger problem than the head coach is right now. Dominic says he thinks it's an overreaction. Flames are everywhere, hitting all angles of the coaching staff and the front office. I like that right there. Good reasoning right there from Dominic. Berg says he's taking the under. Shane cannot evaluate talent for shit. No depth, no solid contributors. The best players on this team mostly are not guys he drafted. No pushback from me. Eternal 25A said Cam Scatterbo became a huge celebrity, larger than life. His injury was huger. That's an interesting way to say that. His injury was larger news than Neighbors. It was everywhere. Yeah, that's true. And I think his style of play absolutely, warrants the fan base supporting him the way that they do. The Illa said he's taking the under. Joe Shane is who I'm pointing the finger at. I will always encourage you guys to go check out the video on the Illa's channel, which was basically around the time, the day that we hired Joe Shane. The Illa saw all this shit coming. Like Cleo the fucking psychic, man. Shout out to Illa. Genesis said he's taking the under. The media definitely give most of the heat. And he's talking about Dable, and Shane is the one signing these contracts. Very true. Simeon said Joe Shane is an embarrassment. Problem said he's taking the under. I think missing on every single pick in 2023, the mismanagement of Saquon, especially McKinney, and pointless money spent on Winston and Darius Slayton. He should have been canned like yesterday. Big Dog Status is in the building. What's going on, Big Dog? He said Pat Leonard was wild for that with the laughing emoji. Yeah, Pat Leonard is that was some goon type behavior right there. Shout out to Pat Leonard. That's my dog. No Met said shout out to Pat Leonard, but Pat is definitely a provocateur. I hope I enunciated that right. Definitely some SAT vocabulary words up here one time. Antoine said he's taking the under. A chef can't make a seafood broil if the person responsible for purchasing the groceries brings you ground beef and French fries. I'm starving right now. I cannot wait to eat after this stream, but that is some great bars right there. Simeon said, I dig Pat Leonard. I'm a big fan of Pat Leonard. You need that kind of energy. And me and Pat Leonard have viewed a lot of the New York Giants moves very similar. And I actually can't wait to catch up with them, hopefully on a live stream over here with you guys one day. Tree said Joe should have fixed the offensive line after year one and built a running game around Saquon. It would have helped Daniel Jones and should have never fired Wink. Coaches have in-house battles, would have made everyone better, in my opinion. Damn, bro. I love this right here, Trees. And let me tell you why I love this. Because I am one who said that it is of the responsibility of Brian Dable to keep his coaching staff intact. And that's absolute facts right there, right? But I never put any of that onus on the general manager, and this is such a great point. General manager has to manage. So if you see some gripes between your coaching staff, but you know that it is not of the best interest of the future of your organization, then you need to find a way to keep those guys together. Joe Shane was reported as being on the headset with Wink Martindale and with Brian Dable during the games, and I think he should have recognized that and found a way to keep Wink Martindale in the building. Absolutely. Love this stance right here, Trees. That's a great gem right there. Breezo Page said Pat Leonard was dead wrong for that. He be kicking people when they are down and putting salt into the wound. I texted him plenty of times about it. Yeah, I think that, that's why I brought up the human aspect of it, right? Like, you just can't forget that these are people. Don't treat them like robots. And that's the part that I definitely have some pushback on for sure. Solitary Camp says it's an overreaction. We suck. Terrible roster construction. The Commanders can't score either because lack of playmakers. Very true, which I think, you might kind of be agreeing with him here, because he's not saying, Big Facts is not necessarily saying that like Joe Shane has done a good job. He's saying that Joe Shane has done a worse job than Brian Dable. So take that into consideration there. Shout out to Jart12. He said he's taking the under. I've had a sour taste of Joe since those reports of the Nick McLeod situation. He doesn't seem to respect the players. Another great point to bring up here. Eternal said, well, we can score. Dart's a beast. Our defense is just complete ass. That's facts right there. Tree said, Nick McLeod was bigger than people realized, and stuff like Waller retired instead of playing here. All of that stuff is building up to why we are so terrible. And that's why I brought up Jason Pinnock earlier in the stream as well. JDJ said it's an overreaction. I think part of it is Dable is in front of the NY media firing squad every week, while Shane isn't available for questioning most of the year. I got you. So it's kind of like a out of sight, out of mind type of situation there. I can agree with that. I love the reasoning for it being an overreaction. Kevin the PRF said he's taking the under. Been saying this all along. The biggest misnomer I see among Giants fan is this is currently a playoff roster. The coaches are messing up. It's not. Bars right there from Kevin the PRF. I love it. Admiral says he's taking the under, but he says, but Shane doesn't have to face the media every week like Dable. If he did, I don't think we'd be giving the appearance of giving Shane a pass. Shane also got cooked on Hard Knocks, clean house. These are great points y'all are coming up with here. Love it. Love it. And Solitary Camp is clarifying that he is taking the under. Lou Mateo said, Joe Shane gave a chef 2 ingredients and expect him to make a 5-star meal. Mosley 2.0 said Pat Leonard and Jordan Renan are necessary. I do agree. A lot of people, this is the thing, man. And I think I've told y'all this before, but this is a big thing that I think is wrong with just America in general. I don't live anywhere else, but I live in America and I function in society and in social media in America. People hate people all too often for their opinions. If somebody has an opinion, that is not enough reason for me to hate them. There is a narrative that goes around Twitter, and it comes from all of these motherfuckers that I have blocked on Twitter, that if you disagree with me, I'll block you. But what they don't understand is that they become a nuisance. They try to slander my name. They try to drag me. They'll say, I will block you for something as minuscule as calling me a clown or putting a clown emoji or saying like, yo, you're a fucktard, whatever you want to call. If you call me anything besides Awthentik or the name my mama gave me, I will block your ass, right? And that's because I just understand that, like, if we're going to have conversations and be talking about sports on social media, whatever it may be, I respect everybody's perspective. I respect everybody's opinion. I'm willing to die on my opinion, and I want you to try to prove why I am wrong in my opinion, which has happened a ton of times. The Illa can vouch for that for sure. And I'm just the kind of person that I view the world as an adult. And it took me a while to get here, y'all. I've told y'all this before. When I was younger, when it came to like politics and shit like that, if I had a Facebook friend that I went to high school with or something like that, and I saw they were supporting a political candidate that I didn't, quite agree with, I'll be like, man, fuck that person. And I find a way to either unfollow them or, being petty and being a fucking immature kid. As I got older, I started to view people's opinions and be like, that should not be a reason why I don't fuck with you. We should be able to have civil debates, civil conversation, and be able to still respect one another. Shit, sometimes there are some of the people that are out here that I'm best friends with that we don't agree on everything. My homie that is the reason why I am a New York Giants fan till this day, because when his family came here from New York and me and him were sandbox homies, that's how I became a New York Giants fan. Me and him disagree on a bunch of shit, but we always have great conversations about that disagreement. So, for Pat Leonard and Jordan Renan, I think that the reason why a lot of fans don't like them is because they don't agree with them, which in my opinion is some weak-ass bullshit. Mosley also said he's taking the under on this one. I love that statement back there from Mosley, too, saying that they are necessary. I totally agree with you on that. No Met said, damn, I'm tweaking. It's an under for me. I got you. Let me see. Kevin the PRF said, I need Tom Hanks' opinion on this crying controversy. No bull. And maybe Michael Jordan with that meme Michael Jordan had going on. Because, listen, I do think that Brian Dable might have been crying or the eyes was a little watery. But I thought that might have insinuated that we would get here on Monday and he would have been fired. So I can't call it, to be honest. Nicki Minaj, 7022, said, I honestly think it's going to take a long time for Scatterbo to return. That injury looked gruesome. Not only does he have not only does he have to recover physically, but mentally as well. I'm saying 2027 return. I think so too. I really do. I think he'll be out there in 2026, but I think his level of play is not going to quite be what we saw for the first portion of the season here. Let me see. Nova Nebula said, boo, overreaction. I respect it. Kevy White said, the sooner you rip the Band-Aid off, the better, in my opinion. Let Kafka audition for a head coaching job here or elsewhere as the interim coach. Let Jaxson start adjusting to life post Brian Dable. Shane is getting a pass. He said, but continue. Let me see how he continued that one. Let me see. That's Kevin. He said, Shane is getting a pass, but the Giants are known to give the general manager multiple shots at head coaches. That's a good point. Yo, Kevy's bringing up a good point right here. That the Giants being known to give the general manager at least multiple head coaches kind of could insinuate that there is a possibility that Joe Shane could be the guy that stays and Brian Dable could be the guy that's out of here. Good point, man. David said, I agree with the statement. I keep saying he doesn't know talent. Illa said, so Pat asked Dable if he was crying while he was at the podium, ? Damn, that's messed up. You can't do that. I couldn't believe it, bro. I really couldn't believe it. It's such a bold-ass question, but Pat Leonard got no-cut cards, man. Pat Leonard the kind of dude that, like, you come out of the house with, like, a booger in your nose, he gonna let you know, hey, bro, you got a big-ass booger in your nose. Or you come out, you're going out for a Friday night with the fellas, right? Pat Leonard driving, and he's scooping you, and you come out and your outfit looking crazy. Pat Leonard gonna tell you, hey, bro, I think you should go back in the house and change your clothes. So I respect it, man. It's not my approach, but I definitely respect it 100%. No Met said, Joe is definitely a bigger issue than Dable. I do agree with you on that. Kevy said, if Kafka is good, you can consider keeping him to keep Dart from learning a new offense. Kevy's dropping some bars right here, man. That's 2 in a row right there from Kevy. I love those 2 statements. Great stuff right there. Let me see. Novambula. Nova Nebula. Why did I read it like that, bro? I know this is you, but I thought you changed your name or something. Why did I just read that like that? Shout out to Nova Nebula. He said, I feel like discussing what we think their fates should be is almost pointless for us because at this rate, unless a miracle happens and they win out, I believe they both will be fired regardless. That's one of the reasons right there, Nova, as well. But, like, also for me, it's just not in my power. I look at it like that. It's not in my power. I'll wait until they're fired, and then I'll go on. Like, what if I go on, like, a GM hunt and a head coach hunt, and then we get to the end of the season and they don't even fire these guys? So I'm not for that. I'm going to just let it all pan out, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Holmes with Jay says, Pat bugs out most of the time. Sometimes it feels like bro hate watches the team just for clickbait moments. Just my opinion. I've heard other people say this about Pat Leonard, about clickbait, right? But this is the thing. Clickbait, by definition, clickbait is when you have a headline that makes people click on something, and then when they get there, that something that they came for is not there. I don't think that's what Pat Leonard is doing. When I look at Pat Leonard's journalism work, he's coming up with headlines that make you go, damn, this guy hates my fucking team. I'm okay with that. When you go to the article, there's always validity and depth within his article, and there's always data, statistics to support the opinion. Every Monday I come up here, I always check out Pat Leonard's articles before I come up here. And it's not like he's up there telling you, Brian Dable's a fat piece of shit and he should be fired. And then you go into the article and there's like, it's not like that. So, we come from a journalism perspective where even when we were doing newspaper, the headline was important. The headline is what made people read the article. I think Pat does a fantastic job with the articles that he's writing. But I also do understand, how he is a bit of an antagonist and how people don't like him. I get that because for some of those same reasons, people don't like me. I had a motherfucker tell me this past week that my whole platform is built off talking about Daniel Jones. And in one way, I was like, this is somebody who is ignorant to what I'm truly doing on my platform, but also has no fucking idea what it takes, how much work goes into building a channel like this, how many graphics go into it, how much sound goes into it, how much lighting goes into it, the microphones, the budget, the amount of money that gets spent on this, the amount of data, the amount of research. Listen, and I can confidently tell you guys this, there is not a single motherfucking New York Giants content creator that presents as much data as me and the Beard do on this channel. And I can confidently fucking say that. And we stay in our lane, right? You could look at tape and you could look at other things and you could say that people are absolutely dominating that category. Like when it comes to the film breakdowns, Bobby Skinner, in my opinion, is the best at that shit. And that's why I leave a lot of that to him because my goal here is not to step on toes and try to become the number one New York Giants, whatever the fuck you want to call it. That's not my goal in life. With everything I've ever done, it's never been, I want to be the number one resource for that. Because when you're a number one resource for something, that means that you are catering to the typical type of whatever it is, fan or whatever. When I did music, when I'm releasing albums, I'm not thinking, man, I need to get as many fans as I want to like this shit. No, I'm putting out my statement. That's my thing, right? And I try to come into this category and, just deliver the value the best that I can do it. And I can confidently tell you this. I can go through all my notes from every single show that we have ever done is back cataloged on my Mac computer. And I can go through there and I do it at times to find old data, like the Tyrone Tracy nugget from today. I always go back to that because me and the Beard pride ourselves on data. I think it was Kevin the PRF that said it last show. It might have been somebody else. I could be wrong. but sent in a super chat talking about how the Beards data is one of the main reasons why they come to this show and show support to this channel. Like, bro, we are a data-driven channel, and if we're going to have an opinion, we're going to back it with data for sure. And I understand why people, they have their opinions about Pat Leonard, but for me, I think the most, and this is not about Holmes with Jay, obviously, but just while we're speaking about Pat Leonard, the goofiest shit that I see on the internet is people who think Pat Leonard is a clown and all this crazy shit, and they don't even know him personally. They're calling this dude a clown for their disagreement with his style of journalism and the type of work that he does. And to me, as I stated before, that's goofy, immature shit. If somebody disagrees with that, so be it. We'll have to just agree to disagree. But I get it. I get why Pat bugs some people out, because a lot of fans don't want to see negativity about their team. They want to see positivity about their team, and I get that part too. Dominic said, I miss Reese. I miss Tom. Definitely miss Tom more than Jerry Reese, but I hear you on the Reese stuff too, man. Reese failed to build the trenches, but definitely was a better talent evaluator than what we're seeing from the last two general managers. Okay, and Nova Nebula said, to clarify, I'm saying overreaction with boos because people definitely have booed very loud for Shane as well, sometimes unwarranted in certain situations, but he deserves it overall. I like the clarification there. I like that. Breeze Opaid said, always got to remember, just because they are beat reporters for the Giants doesn't mean they are fans. They look at everything from a non-biased point of view. That's true. And honestly, there's been a part of what I do over here on this channel that I try to separate it. Like I try to separate the fandom from what I'm seeing on Sundays. And I think that's why I always have viewed this team in the last 7 years in a light of, this is not a good team. When people are just continuously telling you guys year in and year out that this is going to be a good team. This year's the year. I see 10 wins. I see that. There has not been one single season on Awthentik and the Beard that I've came up here and told you that the New York Giants were going to win 10 games. The first year when we got here in 2019, I think I predicted 8 wins. And I think that might be the highest I've ever predicted, was either 8 or 9 wins. And 2021, I believe I predicted 9 wins as well, because we added all those resources on the offensive side of the ball, and, we still shit the bed. So, it is what it is at this point. Tree says, I think Dabo and below average Joel will be back, to be honest, unfortunately. It wouldn't surprise me. Bookend said, not clickbait, just controversial. That's the way to describe it. And some people like controversial shit. You know what I mean? Like, bro, think about how many people watched Maury Povich go up there week in and week out and tell baby mothers that this guy ain't the father. You think they're watching that shit to see the person be the father? Hell no. Those episodes are like, turn that shit off, man. Show me the ones where it says you are not the father and the dude's running around the whole set. So some people like controversy. I'm somewhere in between. I enjoy a little bit of controversy as well, as long as it's, supported with good fact. All right, and let me see. I'm trying to get to the bottom here a little bit, but also trying to cover a lot of people's statements that we haven't seen as well. Enrique said, who do we keep and who goes, coaches and GMs? The theme on today's show, man, it's been like, and on all of our shows, like, I don't know, to be honest. If I had to bet money, I think Shane Bowen will be out of here. Definitely. That's the only money I would bet. Nova Nebula said, shit, since like 2019, I've defaulted to at least 10 losses for the Giants every season. You're a smart man. You're a smart man, bro. And let me see. Another one said, oh, no Mets, no Nets, no Jets said, check out Pat's YouTube channel. It's really good content. It really is. The post-game streams that he does are absolutely amazing. Like, just like all the data you need right away. And I love what Pat Leonard is doing over there on his channel, and recognizing that journalism is, kind of transferring over to this medium. I think is a smart thing for anybody that's a beat reporter or anybody that's in the journalism field. Let me see. Adrian B. 2851 said, how would you feel if Gruden and Pierce became our next coaching staff? I'd feel good about it. I really would. Antonio Pierce is not necessarily my top dog candidate for a defensive coordinator or nothing like that, and I haven't went on an extensive search yet. But I like both of those guys as leaders of men. So if they became the new coach and DC, I'd be cool with that as well. That'd be cool. All right, so it seems like that one really split the room. More people kind of agreeing with the statement on the screen, though. Oh, Nova Nebula said keep Carmen Brasillo. I wouldn't be mad at that either. The Giants cap situation is really bad, too. It is this year. Going to next year, it's going to be a little bit better. I think they were projected to have around 20 million, but we'll see how it gets when we get there. Holmes said controversial is a good description. Yes, absolutely. I love that. I forget who it was that said that, but you a smart man. All right, let's get off into this last giant overreaction. We were talking about, it kind of piggybacks off this one a good bit as well. And, we're talking about Brian Dable kind of getting a little bit more of the blame than Joe Schoen. But this next one, I wanted to take the time to kind of talk about the draft situations a little bit. And I saw one going around social media that I thought was a little bit egregious. So let's get off into this next giant overreaction. All right, now, this one comes from @RM56, actually here on YouTube. And this was in the comment section of the compilation of Jaxson Dart's throws and runs versus San Francisco 49ers here on our channel. And I saw people like arguing, about this statement here actively as I was about to go live. And RM56 said Joe Schoen has had back-to-back great drafts, but Bowen is awful. So you let me know if you think this is an overreaction and you don't agree. Go ahead and put an O in the chat. Tell me why. And if you agree with the statement on the screen, go ahead and put a U in the chat. And this one is a little bit of a two-parter. So if you need to take the push on it and explain why, go ahead and put a P in the chat and go ahead and do so. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you guys the last two drafts. So absorb that, look at it, and tell me if you think Joe Schoen has had two great drafts, because looking at that, I don't think Joe Schoen has had two great drafts. You're looking at 2025 with Abdul Carter, Jaxson Dart, Darius Alexander, Cam Scatterbo, Marcus Bowe, Thomas Fidone, and Corey Black. I really look at Abdul Carter, Jaxson Dart as the true hits right now. You could say Cam Scatterbo is a hit as well, but I would caution, pumping those brakes a little bit, because we saw this last year with Tyrone Tracy a little bit. In 2024, you got Malik Neighbors, Tyler Nubin, Andrew Phillips, Theo Johnson, Tyrone Tracy, and Darius Muasau, which really the only hit out of that draft, in my opinion, looks to be Malik Neighbors. So you're looking at two drafts that have maybe 4 hits in Malik Neighbors, Abdul Carter, Cam Scatterbo, and Jaxson Dart. That's 4 out of 13 players. And really, it just would not surprise me if one of those guys was not a hit. Cam Scatterbo maybe being that one, because that injury, we have to see how he comes back off of that injury. But let's go ahead and call it 4 out of 13. That's 30%. And now of those 4 players that we could deem as hits, 2 of them are going to be coming back off of serious injuries. Malik Neighbors coming off the knee injury and Cam Scatterbo coming off the major ankle injury. So I just wanted to show you guys the list real quick. Have a photogenic memory if you still need that one time. But I do want to go back to the overreaction here that Joe Schoen has had back-to-back great drafts, but yes, Bowen is awful. I'll give him that Bowen has been awful, but I do not think that Joe Schoen has had back-to-back drafts enough to say that I won't even give him the push. I'm going to go ahead and say that this is an overreaction and that Joe Schoen and the New York Giants have actually had 2 pretty bad drafts, but you look at day one, and they've left day one with some pretty good players in Malik Neighbors, in Abdul Carter, and Jaxson Dart. Let me see what the chat's talking, and then we'll get y'all up out of here in a decent time. It's interesting being on a giant overreaction this late in the afternoon, when people are kind of finishing out work. This is normally a time when we're like, definitely already off the air, and the show is already done, and I'm checking the comments and whatnot. Let's see what we got here, though. I'm just trying to see where we left off here. Enrique says he wouldn't be surprised if we sit tight on trades tomorrow. I'm thinking that's what's going to happen, especially with Brian Dable's statements. Definitely, I think that's what's going to happen. David said they need to trade someone for a pick or 2. That would be cool. I think that Devin Singletary could be an option. Maybe Evan Neal, maybe Jalen Hyatt. I wouldn't mess around with Kayvon Thibodeau. Tree says, I feel the only moves we make is Hyatt or Neal. Good stuff, good stuff. Trade Banks for a 7th. I don't know if somebody would give you a 7th. Chaz G said, let's not confuse better than terrible with great. Yeah, that's a fact right there. They average at best. My dog, Richie Westcott, is in the building. What's going on, dog? He said, I'm trying to figure out why Tracy isn't popping off. I can't figure it out either. I used to think that it was because he didn't have the dual threat quarterback, but now with Jaxson Dart in the fold, he's still struggling out there. And obviously Cam Scatterbo early on in the year was taken away from some of his touches. Nova Nebula says he's taking the push because I don't like Bowen, but I also don't think the last 2 drafts have been perfect, but also hasn't been terrible. They haven't been terrible, I guess, but, it's just outside of the first round, they've been pretty terrible. Holmes with the J says it's an overreaction. Too early to tell with some pieces, and Neighbors and Carter, a blind man could have made that pick. That's a fact, and that's why I really don't give Joe Schoen a lot of credit for those 2 picks, and that's more of a reason why I totally agree with you on this. It's an overreaction. Like, even some of these players that you hope could turn into a hit, there's no guarantees on it. So I'm right there with you, fam. Enrique said he's had hits but huge misses, my guy. Yup, absolutely. Berg says he's taking the push. Great drafts by New York Giants, or by New York Giants standards or NFL standards. Too early to tell, but a lot of these guys are not starters on other teams at this point of their career. Good stuff. Breezo Page said he's taking the push. He's had okay drafts and hit on first rounders. Yep. I'm not sure what he's saying right there. Nova Nebula said it's hard to gauge drafted players so early on, and I feel like often people want too much out of late round picks, especially early on. I do agree with you on that as well. Enrique said we ain't even talking about the 2023 class. Sheesh. And that class is looking like straight up cheeks right now. Tree says you better hit round 1, and even that, we got major misses. A good general manager gets guys in middle of the draft. Joe does not do that. Very true. Vince Scam 17 said it's an overreaction. Everyone besides Neighbors, who is hurt and had other toe and shoulder injuries from 2024, has regressed. 2025, too early to judge. This is what Shane will try to sell to ownership in January. Big facts. Deaton said it's an overreaction. Shane got better in each draft, but still not fantastic. I can agree with that to an extent. 2022 was kind of, 2023 was absolute garbage, and then we've kind of got better since. Breezo Page said them 2 drafts don't make up for 2023. So true. Let me see. Is this, I got to call you Banks at the current moment. I'm having trouble with it, but Banks 2894 said overreaction. He has had great picks in the early rounds, but the rest I don't know, and his free agency and trade deadline are questionable. His trade deadline moves have been absolutely questionable. David said they had to trade picks up for Dart when they could have taken him 3rd. Why would they take Carter? The defensive line is the only place with depth. No, I disagree with you on this. I definitely disagree with you on this one, bro. Like, getting Abdul Carter at 3 was the move. And the whole entire NFL knew it. Daniel Jeremiah came out and he did his last mock draft a couple of days before the draft, and he literally predicted the Giants would trade up in the first round to get Jaxson Dart. Even having Jaxson Dart as my quarterback 2, I still had him as a second-round grade. Now, he's looked better. Maybe some of that is in part because of Dable. Maybe some of that is just in part because Jaxson Dart is just him. I don't know. But I wouldn't have drafted Jaxson Dart at 3. What would have been the better situation? Maybe you could have got a wide receiver in the second round if you kept that and didn't trade it. Possible. Definitely possible. But I like the approach. I wasn't mad at the approach at all. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets says it's no overreaction. Giants should rid the organization of Joe Schoen. I ain't mad at that. Genesis said it's an overreaction. Schoen's drafting skills are horrible. He can't really evaluate talent and only got those players because where he was drafting. Great point. Solitary Camp said overreaction. He's had terrible drafts and terrible free agency. Huge O from Blaze the Kid. He says, and based on what we saw on the show, Dable banged the table for the 2 of them. So true. Let me see. This is Ease is Cool. 34 says, you know why I think Joe Schoen is bad? Because if we lost out, we would have Cam Ward, and look how that's looking. Josh fell in their lap. The Cam Ward situation is a little bit difficult to evaluate, if you ask me, because that kid is making some fucking amazing throws this year. And he's battling his ass off, but that team is just not good. And we know that that happens with quarterbacks that are drafted in the first round. I had Cam Ward as my quarterback 1 in this draft. To, not the popular opinion, I had Jaxson Dart as quarterback 2. Most people had Jaxson Dart as quarterback 4 or under for the most part, But also I think that, and I'll continue to say this, don't allow the results of a prospect's NFL career to skew the evaluation that people had pre-draft. It's very different. Where you land means a lot. The location, the team, the organization, the franchise, the competence of the franchise, all of that stuff means the world. And I do think that guys like maybe a J.J. McCarthy are benefiting a little bit more from, the surroundings around the organization over some of the guys like a Cam Ward or maybe even a Michael Penix Jr., to be honest. Chaz G says, I'm still flabbergasted that Mara somehow got a general manager that was worse than Dave Gettleman. I'm right there with you, bro. I'm right there with you. Marjorie says she's taking a push. How does his drafts compare to other GM's drafts? Yes, Bowen is awful, but so are the players. Yep, that's facts. Deaton says average draft combined with horrible coaching is a recipe for a shit show. That's what we're dealing with right now. Nova Nebula said Newbin played solid his rookie season. I don't know what the fuck happened, but he's been really bad this season, but who knows if that continues. Drew Phillips has been productive, but is flawed. Same can be said for Tyrone Tracy and Theo Johnson. Drew Phillips has maybe regressed more this year than Tyler Newbin has. I think Tyler Newbin last year, I think he was just kind of being masked as not being, as terrible as he really is. That's how I view it, because he did nothing last year. He didn't have a single pass deflection. He didn't have a single PBU. He didn't have a single interception. He did nothing. Like, I don't think he had a single sack, nothing. So, that'd be a good experiment for me to go back and look at all his tape from last year as well. I'm seeing a dude this year that it's just very obvious he's timid. He doesn't want to, put his nose in there on plays. 117 said, I'm in D.C., and this has kept me entertained in rush hour traffic. Man, big salute, man. I'm in the DMV as well. I lived in D.C. for damn near a decade. I'm right back across the line now in Silver Spring, and I'm enjoying it, bro. I don't miss D.C. much. D.C., pandemic, post-pandemic, that shit was looking crazy, man. I'm surprised a motherfucker didn't kick in my door and try to, steal all my studio shit. I'm really surprised because it was terrible out there. And I hope it's kind of going back in the right direction, because D.C. is a beautiful city, man, with beautiful people. But shout out to 117 in the building rocking out with us. Chart 12 says, I feel like these drafts are above average, but the coaching and morale has been so low that it doesn't feel that way. I respect it. The Illa said, I was never big on the Bowen hire from the start. Even with upgraded talent, I'm not sure how much it improves under his tutelage. Yeah, that's true. And I still think the Giants have a talent, deficiency as well on the defensive side of the ball, on both sides of the ball. Bookend said, I think Tracy's shoulder was hurting. Yeah, the shoulder injury could be something for sure, but y'all know I abide by the rules of the program. Are you hurt or are you injured? If you are hurt, you can go back out there and play on the field, and we got to expect you to be your best. If you're injured, then you need to take a seat on the bench. Solitary Camp said he paid 2 defensive backs coming off injury, top dollar. Now they're injured again. Yep, we talked about that earlier. 117 said, but overreaction. He got gifted those picks on day one. He's been gifted big picks, man. 2022, we had 11 draft picks, man. 2 in the top 10. And we really don't have much to show from that. It's really unfortunate. Tree says the only Joe got good draft picks is crazy, because you better get a good player when picking in the top 10 every year, and 2 year 1 in top 5. Yep, we just kind of broke that down. I'm right on the same page with you, bro. JDJ said, I don't give credit to the Giants for not forcing a quarterback last year if they didn't feel like Penix. Oh, he said, I do. I do give credit to the New York Giants for not forcing a quarterback last year if they didn't feel like Penix, McCarthy weren't the guy. Yeah, I give them credit too. But more importantly, I think they were forced into that position because of the Daniel Jones contract. They were only 2 years in. They didn't want to draft a quarterback over Daniel. They clearly said on Hard Knocks the plan all along was to build around Daniel. And I think it's working out for us. Drafting Malik Neighbors in 2024, that's working out for us. Adrian says Tracy is not good or reliable in terms of getting those numbers consistently. He's not the guy. I respect it. Okay, this is a good one. Ease is Cool 34 said, Dable hasn't developed Dart. Dart is just good. Look at Allen. He's actually gotten better since Dable left. We need a coach that really is going to develop players. All right. Love Ease is cool. This is my dog. He's cool as shit. But respectfully, I 3,000% disagree with you on this one. For one, there's no way Josh Allen got better when Dable left. Go back and look at the numbers to support it, and look at Josh Allen when he got to Dable, more importantly. So Josh Allen, after the whole development from Dable, which who knows, it could have been the development from any coach. We don't know. Josh Allen is that good. He could have been developed by any coach. We truly don't know, and we'll never know. But after he was developed by Brian Dable, they had the number 3 offense in the NFL in back-to-back seasons, and Josh Allen had his best years. I want to say that 2020 or 2021 is Josh Allen's best year to date. I know he won the MVP last year, but the only reason why he didn't win the MVP back then was because Aaron Rodgers was on a mission and he was lighting shit up and he was not turning the ball over. So that part of it, I vehemently disagree with you. I think you're wrong on that one. Now, the part that Dable has not developed Dart, I watched Jaxson Dart all of his games on all 22 coming out of college, not just the broadcast cam. And Jaxson Dart had deficiencies in his game, most definitely. There are things even from a running standpoint with what he does with his legs that I think that Brian Dable actually is a benefit to Jaxson Dart because he's letting Jaxson Dart kind of do the same things we saw with Daniel Jones where, look, if it's not there, take off and go. And I didn't see a lot of that on Jaxson Dart's tape at Ole Miss. Jaxson Dart was a guy that they schemed a lot of those designed quarterback runs for him, and they ran a shit ton of bubble screens, just like most college quarterbacks are the benefit of. Shedeur Sanders was the same, more egregious, same thing with Cam Ward. All these guys benefited from a lot of just screens and short passes at the line, and they all benefited from a ton of yak. Jaxson Dart is better right now than what I saw on his college tape. And I watched every game from the last 2 seasons at Ole Miss. I didn't watch a lot of the games at USC all 22 because I didn't have those games. But I disagree with you. To say that Brian Dable, I think a decent example to let you know that Brian Dable can develop quarterbacks is look at Tommy DeVito. Going from being a quarterback when he came in on his first start that they literally did not feel comfortable letting this guy throw the ball in the entire second half of the game against the New York Jets. They gave the ball to Saquon Barkley 20-plus times in the second half, and DeVito did not even throw the fucking ball. To then go on to beat the Green Bay Packers, to put up back-to-back games with over 300 yards, which Daniel Jones had not even done, to then put up back-to-back games with multiple passing touchdowns, which Daniel Jones had not even done. And shout out to Daniel Jones. He went 4 straight games with back-to-back or 4 straight games with multiple passing touchdowns this year with the Colts. It just came to a halt this past week against the Steelers. We can't sit up here and act like nothing that Jaxson Dart is doing has anything to do with Brian Dable. I can't, at least, I'll say. You guys can, but I can't. So I totally disagree with this stance here. Brian Dable is good with quarterbacks. That's one thing I think for sure. As a head coach, not so much. Not so much. Nova said, no way you pass on Abdul Carter. Right there with you. Breezo Page said, is Jaxson Dart your QB1 over Cam now? No, because that's kind of what and I know the comment is from a couple of minutes ago, about 10 minutes ago, but that's kind of what I was elaborating on just now. Like, I do not allow the evaluation of a prospect coming out of college to be skewed by the results of the NFL. I still think Cam Ward is quarterback 1 coming out of that draft. Jaxson Dart's having better results right now, though. That is a fact for sure. Chaz G said, is he picking in the top 7 every year? He should hit on a player or 2. That isn't a compliment. It's an admission of being trash, in my opinion. Only draft pick that's impressed me was our rookie, Marcus Bowe. And for me, Marcus Bowe really hasn't impressed me that much. He looked good in preseason, but at right tackle this past week, it was not a good look. It was not a good look at all. Let's see. A Spark of Life. I haven't got one from a Spark of Life 85 today. Says, we have reached the apathetic part of the season. LOL. We have. We definitely have. And there's a long road ahead of us, which is definitely scary. Tree says, good coaching and a good team around a guy can be all the difference. Yeah, I mean, you need personnel too, you know? You absolutely need personnel because I view Cam Ward as like a good quarterback. I really do. But he doesn't have a good team around him, doesn't have a consistent running game around him, and more importantly, he doesn't have a mind that is putting him in position to make plays. And he's not like this dual threat who can do those things like Jaxson Dart where he can just run around all game. Can't do that. So it's been tough for him, but I agree with Trees on this one. That's a great statement. The Illa says, I just want a general manager that can hit on a few interior defensive linemen in the later rounds. You keep your interior young and underpaid, but the money in the secondary and edge rushers. Great point, man. Great point. And we've been able to do that in the past and, you know, the far past, but as of late, it's been a big issue. Breezo Page said, it's not a great draft unless you find somebody like a Puka Nacua in the 5th. We drafted Jalen Hyatt over him, by the way. Oh, my God. You're the first person that I've heard talk about Puka over Jalen Hyatt. And, you know, I know Puka was a late-round gem just along with Kyron Williams as well. And McVay is really good at doing that. But, damn, when you put that in perspective that we traded up when you had a guy like Puka sitting right there, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible, man. Let's see. I'm trying to catch up a little bit more because I'm far back now. Blaze the Kid said the fact that we let dogs walk out the door like X and Julian Love and paid Slayton says it all for him. And just look at his first two drafts, just terrible. Yeah, the first two drafts are they're awful. A lot of guys not even on the team now. Nova said, I only wanted Williams, Daniels, or May in the first round last season. I was cool on the other quarterbacks unless they could have somehow gotten Penix in the second round, but clearly that wouldn't have happened. Yeah, because Penix went 8 to the Atlanta Falcons. And I was a big fan of Michael Penix. Like, I like arm talent, and Michael Penix has a ton of arm talent. I still think there's a bright future for Michael Penix. Just not this season. It's not looking like it right now. DeIlla said, I'm not that big on our edge rushers. I'll take a true defensive end over a tween. Yo, DeIlla, you've been saying this for a long time, bro. When I was having those conversations before we drafted Abdul Carter about not liking the archetype of the two-speed edge rushers, DeIlla would always say this in the streams, that he didn't like the tweeners. Like, he likes the true defensive ends, the Michael Strahans. And I'm with you on that, man. It's not to take away anything from Brian Burns, but you would think that pairing him with a player that is not the same of his archetype would be a better move. DeIlla also said true defensive ends are tough to come by these days because the college game does not produce them as often anymore. Good point. And then he said a true defensive end is Myles Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson, Nick Bosa, so-and-so. And he said guys that can legitimately do it all. And they're not a liability in the run. That's what's most important, man. That is what's most important. Nova said, I'm not fucking with Giants fans sending Jones hate and trashing him for a bad game either. Bro has been absolutely hooping, and I'm actually happy for him. Yeah, I don't wish players, like, I don't wish that kind of, negativity on players. Like, go ball, Just go out there, go prove people wrong is what I would say to Daniel Jones. But also I just think that part of the Giants fan base is they just overinflate what a player is doing. Like, honestly, y'all, and y'all might disagree with this, I didn't think Daniel Jones was a top MVP candidate going into this week. I just didn't think that. He had 13 touchdowns through the air coming into this week and 3 interceptions. You look at Matthew Stafford and what he's doing out there, and, like, no one was even talking about Matthew Stafford as being a MVP candidate right now. I think he had like 17 touchdowns, 2 or 3 interceptions. How is this not possible? Already around 2,000 yards? I didn't understand that. So, I also thought that Daniel Jones is a bit of a luxury of playing inferior competition, just as well as Drake May. Like, man, you look at Drake May and you look at his game logs, bro. The only impressive team, he only has one impressive win on the season, and it was against the Buffalo Bills. But, like, you look at the other ones, the wins against the teams, and a win is a win is a win. You can't take it away. But when I talk about that MVP shit, you got to be beating some teams. He's beaten the Raiders. He's beaten the Panthers. He's beaten the Saints. He's beaten the Titans. He's beaten the Browns. And he's beaten the Falcons. Man, as I said at the top of this stream, schedule matters, man. If the Giants had that schedule, we would not be sitting at 2-7 right now. And same goes for Daniel Jones, with an impressive victory against, I believe, the Denver Broncos, the Los Angeles Chargers, but then you got 2 victories against the Tennessee Titans, the Bengals, the Dolphins. Like, these are bad teams. So I want to see these guys go up against the superior competition in the NFL, not the inferior, before I start deeming them as MVP candidates. And I don't know if you noticed, Nova Nebula, but, like, I could have, if I wanted to, after the temperature surrounding some of the Daniel Jones takes that I had in June that Dante from East Coast Gridiron reposted, where people are like, oh, I can't say that. But I said that before the year that Daniel Jones is a capable quarterback. It's all about between the ears and consistency, right? But people hated those takes. And if I wanted to, I could have came out this week and been like, told you so. But I'm not going to speak on Daniel Jones this week. I'm going to let that go and, like, just wish him well, bro. And that's what everybody should do. He's no longer a New York Giant. And as my dog, No Mets, No Nets, No Jets, has been saying religiously on this channel, fuck Daniel Jones. He has nothing to do with the New York Giants. And I hear you on that. At times I fall victim to talking about him because I get a lot of people that want to try to, hit me with the I told you so shit on Daniel Jones. Like, bro, there is no I told you so, for me at least. You can't come at me with that shit because I've been telling motherfuckers Daniel Jones wasn't the guy for the New York Giants for a long time, and he wasn't the guy for the New York Giants. If he goes on and he turns into a fucking MVP quarterback, best of luck to him, man. I hope he does. That would be great for him. Marjorie said the Steelers have released cornerback Beanie Bishop Jr., who had 4 interceptions as a rookie last season. Man, listen, we need all the help we can get. So, man, when I watched that, I did go back and rewatch the Pittsburgh Steelers Colts game. And that defense, man, they had me so envious. That defense was flying around, stopping the run, creating turnovers. What was it, 5 turnovers in that game? I know Daniel Jones had 3 interceptions and 2 fumbles. And then I think they had a fumble on special teams. So you're looking at 6 turnovers by that Pittsburgh Steelers team. I was so envious watching it, man. It was just like they were just causing chaos up front and dominating the trenches. And, their personnel doesn't look as, sexy on paper as ours does, but they're going out there and getting shit done. And, you got to credit Mike Tomlin and the coaching staff over there as well, and the personnel. They have good personnel. They have good enough personnel to get it done. Bookend said Cam has an elite arm, so if he puts it together, he'll meet his draft status. Absolutely. I agree. Like, Cam, man, that dude is making some throws where you just be like, holy moly. Let me see. Ease is cool said, how do you feel about the Carl Banks comments on Dex? Dex kind of proved his point after yesterday's performance. Yeah, I feel exactly the way you feel about it. And we talked about that a little bit at the beginning of the stream. And, Carl Banks is saying go out there and demand your respect, and these guys go out there and, look terrible. So, yeah, Carl Banks was right. And, fuck all these people that are fucking attacking Carl Banks. Fuck you, man. Y'all don't understand what it is to be, and I never fucking say this shit, like real Giants fans and all that shit. But you got a legend in Carl Banks who should be a fucking Hall of Famer that is taking the time out of his day to talk to you fucking peons out here. Yeah, I said it, you peons out here. And y'all out here fucking shitting on his name. Like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Carl Banks can't even go up here and criticize a player when all along y'all are saying he's a company man and he's fearful to criticize players. And when he does, y'all give him shit for it. That's bullshit right there. I hate that shit. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets said, nah, DJ ain't a Giant, so it's fuck DJ. And I didn't even see this one, and I know that's how you feel, bro. And that's how it should be. Deedon said, facts, Awthentik. DJ is not impressive. Yeah, he's playing good football. And I was talking to some homies yesterday about, look at Sam Darnold, right? How he just dominated the game. And I do put Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones in a very similar category of quarterbacks that it didn't work out with their first stint. But, like, you can really see it with your eyes with Sam Darnold. Like, he's making every throw. But I will tell you this. When I was watching the Colts-Pittsburgh Steelers game again, I clipped up a couple of throws from Daniel Jones that later, I'm not going to do it this week, but later I'm going to post, and I'm going to post them on my Twitter to just bring attention to he was not throwing the ball like that when he was in New York. There is something that happened in his transition from Minnesota over to the Indianapolis Colts where he's playing with more confidence. There was a throw late in that game. They were down by like 2 scores, and the score is so much closer than the game actually was. It ended up being 27-20. But the score, when you looked at the game, they got dominated on all phases. Calvin Austin ended up fumbling the ball in Colts territory when they were going to put that game into a 3-score range, which allowed them to kind of get things back close, but and keep it around 27-20. But Daniel Jones, late in that game, was stepping up in the pocket and making some throws where I was like, yo, that's a big boy NFL throw, man. And that's what it should be. As you play in the league more, you should get better. Until father time catches up with you and, your body starts to take a toll and you can't do the things you used to be able to do when you were younger. And I'm going to skip a lot of the Daniel Jones stuff. I don't want to harp on that too much. I'm going to skip a lot of that and just get down here to the bottom of the chat a little bit more here. Okay, so there's the bottom. Okay, Tree says, I don't know if you saw Dex pushing 2 guys. Not saying he played great, but I feel scheme matters, and we don't give Dex help or make it easy for guys to make a play by out-coaching the other teams. And there's validity to this for sure, because Dexter Lawrence, it's not that he's some bad player or nothing like that, but he has the kind of greatness in his game that demands a double team. That's just what it is, right? I made a description or a comparison about, like, knowing that you need something for something doesn't mean that, like, you respect it, right? It's like, shit, if I know somebody's going to kick down my door and I put up an extra lock and I know that's going to keep them from kicking down my door, don't mean I respect the other person on the opposite end of the door. So I do think that Dexter Lawrence is losing some of the respect from some of the players, but they just know that, hey, if we double team him, it's over for him. And the guys next to him aren't going to make plays within the run. That's just what it is. Chaz G said, no Carl Banks slander is tolerated on this side. None. And that's how I view it. Like, yo, Carl Banks is such a good dude, like, first and foremost. And the fact that he just takes the time out of his day to make himself accessible to fans is amazing. But not only that, listen, when I did a mock design of some Giants Nike dunks back in the day, and Nike ended up canceling that whole plan they had to do customized dunks, right? So I was bummed out about it. And I posted them on Twitter. Nike ended up sending me the fucking dunks, man. It was the craziest shit ever. I got this big-ass box on my front porch one day with a bunch of shit from Nike. I couldn't believe it. And a letter saying, look, we know we discontinued the dunks, but we liked your dunks. The design was dope. You know, hopefully these get to you in time for the season. I posted that whole experience on Twitter, and Carl Banks, somebody in the comment section said, Carl Banks, you need to lace Awthentik with some stuff to go with these kicks. Man, a couple of weeks later, I had another box on my porch from Carl Banks, a signed football. He gave me the dopest New York Giants jacket known to man from Starter. Like, it's so fire. Like, I don't even wear it on streams because I feel like it'll look too over the top. Like, I hate when I see people like all just too decked out in New York Giants gear. Like, you got the jacket on, you looking like Kobe after the championship and shit. And I just don't do that. But Carl sent me that jacket. He sent me a couple of hats. He sent me a couple of T-shirts. Like, he just a good dude. And he didn't know me from a can of paint. And now Carl Banks is a guy that me and him can have conversations in the DM easy. He's constantly retweeting my content on Twitter, and he's just a good dude. He does not have to do any of that. So I'm right there with Chaz, man. No Carl Banks slander. And when I see people slandering Carl Banks, I look at you like you're a fucking goofball. Like, you either are just a fucking young, immature kid and you're getting a kick out of this, or you just got no fucking home training or manners. It's basically that. Shout out my dog Derek one time in the building. He said, dude, so many Giants players are clocking out. It's so obvious. Mainly the ones who have been losing season after season. They want out, and I get it, but also quitters deserve to be gone. And then he said, Dex, I hear you, bro. I hear you, bro. I definitely hear you, and I agree with a lot of this. Tree said, don't mind Carl Banks being real at all. Yeah, man, I respect honesty, man. It's a beautiful thing. The Illa said, people talking shit about Carl Banks have no business out here talking ball. And I agree. Like, man, my older brother, me and him don't have a lot of football conversations, but he's a big reason of why, like, just how I approach football comes a lot from my older brother, who's a Dallas Cowboys fan. And I've never had a conversation with my brother about, like, yo, I have a relationship with Carl Banks, none of that shit. But if I told him that Giants fans were shitting on Carl Banks, he would lose his fucking mind, man. He would lose his mind. Bookend Tackle said, best linebacker crew, big blue wrecking crew. Banks, LT, Carson, Pepper, Johnson. Yeah, missed that core for sure. I want to get back to that football, bro. I want to get back to that football. And, I'm going to be patient, but I'm an old man. And once I get into that triple OG status, and I'm y'all senior citizen type shit, or we're all senior citizens together, that clock's going to be ticking, man. I really want to get another championship in that trophy case, and right now it just doesn't seem like we are, headed in that direction. Nova said Dex has played fine this season, but he hasn't played up to the standard that he set for himself over these past 3 seasons. It's a great bar, brother. It's a great bar right there. Great bar. JDJ said, I can't imagine how frightened Mara is that HBO is coming to town. Yeah, just, don't forget that I think the one part that they can, look at as a positive is that it's not like the one that's focused on the front office. So, if you've watched the AFC North version that they did last year, it's really focused on the football on the field for the most part and stories that, surround the players more than the front office, general manager, and the coaching staff. So, we'll see. We'll see. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be doing recaps about Hard Knocks as well. And, I kind of forgot that it's NFC East. And I remember the Beard was talking about it with us on one stream. And, I kind of just forgot, like, the Commander's going to be a part of this as well. So maybe I'll get the Beard to pull up and we'll do, like, some recaps on the Hard Knocks vibes and kind of give y'all two perspectives from the Commanders and from the New York Giants as well. Tree said, I also hate that bend, don't break mental way of thinking. Attack and use coverage. Smart to cover where you're attacking. From you see nothing different week to week. Like, clearly it doesn't work. Try something else. And Brian Dable actually said in the press conference today, right before I went on live, he said, like, you know, the players aren't executing. The personnel's not living up to the name. But he also said, like, maybe we need to change the scheme. So maybe they are considering that. That would be a good look. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets said, damn, I'm one of them ones. I overdo it with the Giants apparel. Out here looking like Eddie and Arsenio and Coming to America. Now, look, don't get me twisted, right? Like, if I'm out at a game, I'm going to go crazy. Or if we go into the bar or something, I might throw on the jacket. But when I'm on a stream, I don't want to go too crazy. Like, my girls always ask me, like, how come you don't wear that one Giants t-shirt? And I'm just like, we're not good enough yet for me to come up here and be rocking all this Giants gear. So, you know, I just think it looks crazy when you have, especially a jacket, t-shirt, hoodie, whatever, all that shit cool. But, like, the big jacket, like we on Coming to America, yeah, I can't. You know what? I might just rock that shit in one of these next streams just so y'all can see it. But it's just absolute fire. The collar kind of folds a little bit. The material, everything about it, man. It's got the Super Bowl patches on it. That shit is straight up gas, man. But I hear you. If I'm going out, I might throw on some threads. You know what I'm saying? I might. I definitely wore my kicks out to a couple of games and some other shit too. I was going crazy with it. Breezo Page says Hard Knocks is covering the second half of the year. It won't cover all the fun stuff that happened in the beginning of the season. True. You know, but we got Jaxson Dart at quarterback, so maybe we'll have some things to, you know, hang our hats on and have some fun. Regardless, it's going to give us high-level content creation that we don't get normally during the year, and I'm looking forward to it. RR677 says, it's okay to start over, Awthentik. The key piece is there with number 6. Keep up the solid work. Absolutely, you know that. I'm going to continue to keep trying to raise this bar over here, and I agree with you. You can clean house, man, players and all. Like, if it's dudes that you don't see as a valuable asset moving forward, whether that be Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, some of these guys you just brought in, and Javon Holland, Paulson Adebo, Andrew Thomas, Jermaine Illuminor, JMS. I don't care. Literally, the only 2 players, I'll say 3 players. Yeah, the only 3 players that I'm like, I know I want those guys on the team moving forward. Jaxson Dart, Malik Neighbors, and absolutely Brian Burns. I'll throw Cam Scatterbo in there just because he hasn't had his whole opportunity yet, and he looked like one of them guys that could reset the energy for the New York Giants. So I'll put Cam Scatterbo. We'll do 4 players. 3 of them are on the offensive side of the ball, which is crazy as shit. It's definitely crazy as shit. Let me see. JDJ said, I don't know what will be scarier for HBO to air it. Welcome to Derry or Shane Bowen coaching defense during a Giants practice. Yeah, and they're not going to give us a lot of that behind-the-scenes stuff. I've watched the one on the Buffalo Bills a good bit this year. I watched the AFC North last year. And just a lot of the stories, like, honestly, it was a little bit more boring than the offseason version. Like, that offseason version of the Giants on Hard Knocks, that shit was entertaining. Every week we had a viral clip going out there and loved it. Let me see. Banks says that we got to throw Andrew Thomas in there. I like that too. I would put Andrew Thomas in there as well. But listen, if they view Andrew Thomas as a guy that they can get some draft capital for and they want to trade him, I wouldn't be too opposed to it. But if it was me, I'd probably keep Andrew Thomas around, no doubt about it. Vinny Vega 2G is in the building. He said, bro, my birthday was the October 30th. Wife walks in with Giants tickets for December. LOL. I'm like, great, scratching my head. She don't know. Damn, bro. That's like, I ain't gonna front. When I got a couple of little Giants apparel from last Christmas, I was kind of just like, this is before Jaxson Dart and all that stuff. I was just like, damn, we're fucking terrible. But hey, you gotta take it. It's a gift, It's a gift. You gotta take it, bro. I don't know if you're gonna be at that game, but we'll see. Tree Scroll said, I don't know. I find it hard to truly evaluate these players with this staff. These guys are human beings. On a bad team isn't mentally easy. Year after year is draining. For me, man, Trees, I look at a lot of all 22, and when I see players dogging on 22, I'm like, oh. Yeah. Even they asked Nacho about effort, and he was looking all the way up to the sky like, oh. He's like, I don't ever want to say a player's not out there giving effort, but we got to find ways to execute. I'm just like, good answer, bro. And people were saying that Nacho should have taken off his glasses and his jacket that he wore to the game and his chain because he looked kind of like a rapper. He was definitely on some flamboyant vibes, flashy shit. But they were like he should have took off his glasses and his chain when he went to the podium or not to the podium, but when he was talking to the press. I was like, man, we ain't shit, bro. Chaz G said, nah, we have to stop letting talent walk. We need to build around them instead. I get them not being hyped to play with this shit show. We're tired of watching it. I know they're tired of getting bruises. Yeah, I agree with you, Chaz, but also consider that things have to develop and mature on a certain timeline. Some of these guys not getting younger. And that's the dilemma, right? But I do think Andrew Thomas, going back to that, I think that's a great player you got to keep. And JDJ said also throwing Carter. And, yeah, I mean, these guys haven't even had their opportunity yet. So, yeah, I would absolutely throw in Abdul Carter. And anybody that was in the 2025 NFL draft, they should have a clean slate right now. They're just 1 year in the league. Where is KO official says Bobby O, Newbin, Banks got to go. Trade them for picks, in my opinion. If you can get value from those guys, I wouldn't be too mad at it. And Bobby O's another one that I think doesn't really align with the timeline as well. Solitary Camp said, I'm really starting to hate this team. I don't know how to feel. Joe Shane must go. Welcome to the club. Bookend Tackle said AT and Scat stay. LT are hard to find. Left tackles are hard to find. Yeah, very true. Very true. I agree with y'all on that. But even still that I agree with y'all that I would keep those guys. To me, going back to that main point of like, we have the quarterback and that's the key and everybody else we can reset. I do agree with that statement, but those are guys that I would keep. Enrique says losing. I don't think so. People said that we shouldn't even start Jaxson Dart because Andrew Thomas wasn't healthy. And I always said, fuck all that. I'm of the thinking of like, look, if you got a quarterback, he's going to go out there and make plays regardless of who's playing at left tackle. But AT definitely helps the situation, so I ain't mad at that either. Tree said, I agree. We got to keep the talent we got there. A lot of guys who are still young enough. AT is 26. That's a keeper. Carter, Burns, Tibbs. Even keep the young 24. The young 24, he's just coming into his prime. Yeah, I like those players, all those players. Tibbs is a guy that I've campaigned to not trade all year long. Yeah, I like all those players, and I don't think that the Giants have to start over. Don't get me wrong. But if they did, it wouldn't bother me, being that we do have the quarterback. Banks says bring Wink back and let Brown be the general manager and let the head coach be Gruden. I wouldn't give you too much pushback on that. Solitary Camp said Carter can go as well as Tibbs. I don't know. I don't know about that, brother. But we 3 hours in. I'll take this last one from Where is KO. He said, let me see. He said, I know somebody said he wasn't going to the league Sarkisian, if he was the coach for next year or Kiffin, would you fuck with it? I would absolutely fuck with it. Yeah, man. Lane Kiffin? Absolutely. People had this knock on Lane Kiffin that like his offense didn't have anything in it that was like, NFL style or whatever. But like when I look at the tape, his offense would translate. All he runs is fucking RPOs, man. And that all these teams in the NFL run an RPO. I think that there should be more RPO for Jaxson Dart this year. So I love that right there. And Trees will take this one too. He said, Gruden would work here. I think his energy fits NY and old school mindset. Yeah, I just don't know if Mara would approve it. That's the biggest thing, man. And No Met said, biceps and great show, man. Salute to you. Yo, no Mets, no Nets, no Jets been rocking out with us every fucking stream, bro, since I can remember. Salute to you, man. We got to link up, man, and watch a game one time, especially if I can get a day off of Bleacher Report. We got to link up, bro. You've been rocking out with us for too long. It'd be nice to go have a beer, have a lunch or something, man, watch some football. So I'll make sure we're in touch, man, and we'll try to lock in. But big shout out to everybody who tuned in today, man. The over-under was an hour and a half. And, yeah, we shattered the over-under over here on Awthentik in the Beard on the Giant Overreaction, man. Can't thank you guys enough. I hope that this stream somehow at least puts you in a better mood considering the way that the New York Giants played football on Sunday. And, man, all we can do is just, keep trying to root for W's, keep rooting for this team. And, It is what it is, man. We're not in control of what they do out there on the field. I'm going to try my best to go out there and try to enjoy New York Giants football as much as I can. Shout out to everybody that was very, very active in the chat today, man. I see all of y'all. The most recent names, Breezo Pay, JDJ was here, Trees, Genesis, No Mets. The Illa was here rocking out with us, and there's his name right there. He said, thanks for the time, Awthentik, as always. Man, Marjorie, all of my day ones rocking out with us today. Kevin the PRF was in the building. Where is KO seems like a new name. I don't remember seeing Where is KO in the building, but rocked out with us today. Solidary Camp. Banks was in the building. Chaz G was rocking out with us. Enrique was rocking out with us. Bookend Tackles, another day one, been rocking out with us for a long time. Nova was rocking out with us. And anybody else I forgot, man, big salute to y'all. I appreciate y'all rocking out with us. You know, when the New York Giants are not playing good football, right? Like, I know as a fan how terrible it is to try to go out there and watch content when our team is not playing good. But when the team is playing good, man, that content be hitting like crack. And, you know, all we can do is just, you know, pray and hope to the football gods that is closer to our situation and that we can possibly get there in the near future. But until then, I will try to, you know, remain as patient as I possibly can be. I keep reminding myself. I almost want to put like a piece of tape with a sign up here that just says patience, just so I can continue to remind myself to do that and be that as much as I can be. But I encourage you guys to be patient as well. But if you're not, I understand it. Like Solitary Camp just said, bro, I can't even watch the games. I feel you. You know, it's been tough. But just hang in there, y'all. And I'm going to try my best to try to bring you guys the highest level of content that I can bring you guys to just make this season, you know, a little bit more enjoyable as we progress here through the second half of the season. Again, man, I can't thank y'all enough, you know, not only for today, but just for the results that we get on this channel. And hopefully that, you know, those results can kind of influence and trickle into our organization. But we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting finish to the back half of the season. So definitely we'll be active as much as we can be. Don't forget to keep your eyes peeled for the compilation. I'm going to work on Tyler Nubin today. I'm going to work on Dexter Lawrence today. And I don't know, maybe we throw in another player there. But this week we will definitely have a couple of other compilations coming out on the channel. And then Thursday we'll be back for the preview show, which should be a really good one considering the situation that the Washington Commanders are in. Is looking a lot similar to the New York Giants situation as well, man. Biceps in the chat before we get up out of here. Anybody on the replay that got to this point in the stream, 3 hours and 11 minutes in, I want you to put a trophy into the comment section. For all my dogs in the chat that rocked out with us from the beginning of this stream when we started at what? 2:45, 3 o'clock? It was 3 o'clock. Salute to y'all biceps in the chat, man. Y'all know we couldn't do this without y'all. And we end every show the same exact way over here on Awthentik in the Beard. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. And a life without dreams is a life in black and white. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT and New York legend, Combat Jack. And that is a wrap, y'all. We'll see what happens for the rest of the week. Again, keep your eyes peeled for more content. Worst case scenario, we'll catch y'all on Thursday for the preview show. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Monday afternoon/evening, and eat good, smoke good, live good. I'll catch y'all on the flip side, man. Y'all be easy. It was my pleasure coming up here, getting a chance to talk New York Giants football with the best fucking chat in the whole entire land, man. Y'all be good. Stay blessed. Peace.